Chapter 467. And Lin returned to the familiar university and his cozy dorm room. He didn't think that so many things would happen during his trip to the Vermilion Bird sect with Su Xiaolan. This trip took over a month, and Vice Principal Yu Hua had a rough idea of what had happened, so he didn't say anything about his absenteeism for over a month. However, some of his classmates and friends were extremely worried. First was the news of Lin's death. Then he was suddenly resurrected. Their hearts were starting to throb. Previously, Lin had returned to the Vermilion Bird sect after spending half a day using voice transmission talisman to report that he was safe. Upon learning of Lin and Su Xiaolan's return, Xianyuan Cheng, Su Qianyan, and the others immediately rushed to Lin's dorm room to pay their respects. Su Xiaolan took the initiative to pour tea for everyone in an elegant manner. There was a hint of holiness and indifference on her beautiful features. Lu Qianhuan stared at Su Xiaolan this entire time, and her cherry lips slowly gaped open as an expression of astonishment appeared on her face. "Sister Su Xiaolan, I'm not sure if I'm mistaken. Why do I feel like your cultivation base is even higher than mine? You've already progressed to the soul formation stage?" "Don't joke around, Lu Qianhuan. She was only at the spirit nurturing final stage during the free-for-all battle. How could she have progressed from the half-step soul formation stage to the soul formation stage in such a short time?" Senior Tang Shimin shook his head with a smile before Su Xiaolan had a chance to reply. "That's right. Not everyone is as freakish as classmate Lin. You're probably mistaken." Su Qianyan chimed in her mellow voice. Su Xiaolan nodded. "That's right. I'm already at the soul formation stage." "PFFF." Tang Shimin choked on his tea. Lu Qianhuan nodded in agreement. "I knew it. This aura can't be wrong." Tang Shimin, Su Qianyan, and Xianyuan Chen couldn't even be bothered to say anything. All of them stared at Su Xiaolan with astonishment etched on their faces, as if they were trying to see through something and prove something. "Yes, Xiaolan is already at the soul formation initial stage." And Lin nodded in affirmation, giving the students present a knowing blow, completely shattering their fantasies. "I thought Lin was the only monster, but now there's also Su Xiaolan. They're actually 2 ranks ahead of me." Tang Shimin wiped the tea from the corner of his mouth and looked up at the moon outside the window. It was so round and big, and he felt like he was adorable. Xianyuan Cheng also looked as if he had been dealt a heavy blow. "I could accept it if you could progress to the half-step soul formation stage, but you're already at the soul formation stage? That's way too fast." "That's right. I only recently progressed to the half-step soul formation stage, but you're already at the soul formation stage, classmate Xiaolan. Could it be that you skipped the half-step soul formation stage and progressed directly to the soul formation stage, like classmate Lin?" Su Qianyun's bright blue eyes glowed with a strong desire for knowledge as she stared at Su Xiaolan like a curious baby. Xianyuan Cheng felt as if a sword had been stabbed into his heart upon hearing this. "Su Qianyan is also at the half-step soul formation stage? Am I the only one at the spirit nurturing final stage?" "No. Tang Shimin is also at the spirit nurturing final stage." Xianyuan Cheng turned toward Tang Shimin to find that Tang Shimin was staring blankly at the moon outside the window. Xianyuan Cheng, "No." Xianyuan Cheng's breathing accelerated. "Could it be that I, the young sect leader of the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect, have been reduced to the point where I have to compete with a salted fish like Tang Shimin?" Xianyuan Cheng was in despair, and Lin replied with a smile. Su Xiaolan made her way up step by step. "It's just that her pace was a little too fast. I'll have to start from when I return to the Vermilion Bird sect with her." Immediately afterward, he began to describe his experiences at the Vermilion Bird sect and the Snow Maidens' invasion. The battle between the Snow Maidens and the Vermilion Bird sect had not only shaken the entire kingdom of the 9 states, but it had also created quite a stir throughout the entire Tai Chu continent. Xianyuan Cheng and the others only had a rough understanding of the battle and didn't have a chance to learn more about it. Hence, they were all very interested in hearing the narration of the battle. However, when Enlin described how Su Xiaolan had sacrificed herself to save him, he only gave a brief summary of the events. For some reason, he didn't really want anyone to learn more about this. Su Xiaolan was also listening silently off to the side with a faint smile on her flawless features, giving her a tranquil and pleasant appearance. Everyone present only heard a brief summary of the events, but they could imagine just how thrilling and painful it had been. Xian Yuancheng fell silent for a moment before speaking. Perhaps this is what they mean by fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. Only when one is plunged into despair can one undergo a nirvana-like transformation. Congratulations, classmate Su Xiaolan. Everyone else was also in awe as they offered their congratulations to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan accepted everyone's congratulations with a faint smile on her face, and her gaze toward Enlin became even more gentle. To her, that experience was truly unforgettable. The transformation wasn't just a transformation in cultivation base, it was also a transformation in one's mental state and Tao heart. She knew that it wasn't the ordeal that had given her a new lease on life. Instead, it was Enlin's persistence that had given her a new lease on life. Su Qianyan looked up at Su Xiaolan, who was flying higher and higher into the sky, and she made up her mind that she had to catch up to her. There was no need to even mention Xian Yuancheng. He was the one who had received the greatest blow. He had been dealt a double blow by Su Xiaolan and Su Qianyan, as well as senior student Tang Xiumin. If he didn't work harder, he was going to become someone like senior student Tang. After the pain and despair, an indescribable fighting spirit was ignited in his heart. Courage would come from humiliation. He had to progress to the half-step soul formation stage within a month. That's right, he had to go into seclusion. Tonight was a rare gathering with his friends, so Enlin cooked beef, fried rice for them. The dish was very ordinary, but it became extraordinary because of the frying pan. A small portion was given to his beast pets, and the majority was shared with his friends. This beef fried rice made little Lang cry. Even Tang Xiumin felt as if he had been opened to a whole new world. He asked Enlin if he would accept any cooking disciples, but of course Enlin turned him down. Thus, everyone spent a warm and peaceful night together. The next day, Enlin resumed his mundane school life. He didn't have much time to cultivate at Xiaoxian United University, so he cherished this period of time. He gave Yi 100 steamers of stuffed buns, as well as a bunch of ingredients from the holy glacial lands to express his gratitude. As for the gifts that were too expensive, Yi refused to accept them no matter what. He even said that he would ask for Enlin's help if he ever needed it in the future. This made Enlin cherish this friend of his even more. He engraved this kindness in his heart and swore that he would repay this kindness when he had the ability in the future. After that, Enlin's daily life consisted of selling stuffed buns, attending classes, and hanging out with Celestial Maidenlan whenever he had something to do. Even now, Enlin and Xiaolan were still friends, but not yet Tao partners. There were still 99 years until they became Tao partners. Chapter 468. Time always passed by quickly, and before he knew it, over a month had already passed by. Enlin's stuffed buns had reached a bottleneck, and he would occasionally run out of stuffed buns. After over 40 days, he had only earned a little over 3 million spirit stones. How pitiful! If the other students heard Enlin's sigh, they would probably tear down his house. Enlin's current net worth had already exceeded 16 million spirit stones, which was a level of wealth that even normal return to void stage mighty figures couldn't hope to reach. Of course, this was all a small matter. The big matter was that Xiao Hong suddenly broke through some kind of shackle and reached the half-step soul formation stage, thereby attaining a domain that belonged solely to her. This was a domain enshrouded in golden light, and Xiao Hong was the sun within this domain, which could summon many kind and benevolent monks. Tui, she could summon many exquisitely beautiful clones of the ambassadors of the sun. It felt very bad *SS. In any case, and Lin didn't really understand Xiaohong's consciousness world. All he knew was that her aptitude was probably the best among all of his beast pets. And Lin gave the blood god jade in his storage ring to Xiaohong to consolidate her domain. Xiaohong photosynthesized on the blood god jade every day, day after day, year after year. It was said that competition and pressure would motivate one to improve, and this was definitely true. Xianyuan Cheng applied for a leave of absence to go back to the 10,000 Spirits immortal sect to go into seclusion. Just like that, a month passed, and he still didn't come out. He had said that he was going into seclusion for a month, but it looked like he wasn't going to return to the university until he made a breakthrough. In the end, after 49 days of seclusion, a resounding boom erupted, and he finally came out. Xianyuan Cheng walked out of the mystic realm. His clothes were in tatters, his body was charred black, and his handsome face was as black as charcoal. However, his eyes were extremely bright, and they glowed with unprecedented light. And Lin immediately ran over to greet Big Brother Cheng upon learning that he had returned to the university, only to be dragged into a competition by Big Brother Cheng. About 15 minutes later, the two of them returned to the dorm room with their clothes in tatters and charcoal black, and Lin still didn't understand how the humble Big Brother Cheng had attained such a domain. He had to be crazy to have agreed to that kind of competition. Holy F asterisk CK, Big Brother, and you were bombed? Woof. As soon as he returned to the attic, Debai's eyes widened as he looked at Lin's charred face in amazement. Yes, it was bombed. And Lin nodded naturally and did not deny it. After Master was blown up, he still had a great temperament. There was a sense of heroism in his vicissitudes. Hell, the wolf cub surrounded Lin and flattered him at the right time. The white-scale wolf god had already transformed into a small white wolf and was looking up at Lin with an obedient expression. After interacting with Lin for a while, he had already figured out Lin's personality, and he knew that Lin liked small animals. As such, transforming into a little white wolf suited the style of his beast pet team, so he decided to cater to his tastes. Needless to say, Lin fell for this trick. He stroked the wolf cub's white fur with a smile and praised, "Sensible." The little wolf opened its big watery eyes, stuck out its tongue, and wagged its big tail. It had an obedient look on its face. A sense of crisis immediately welled up in Debai's heart. Not only had his attention been stolen by Su Xiaolan, but now he was going to be stolen by a wolf cub as well. Didn't that mean his share of the stuffed buns that Debai ignored from now on would most likely be reduced? No, he couldn't let that happen. Debai's mind raced, and in the end, he turned to Lin with a fawning expression. "Big Brother I've discovered a good place in the university recently. Go take a bath, and I'll take you there, Woof." "What place?" And Lin asked. A sly smile appeared on Debai's face. "It's a secret. You'll know when you get there." Woof. It had to be said that Debai's words had piqued Lin's curiosity. He hurriedly took a shower, changed into a set of white clothes, and flew out of the attic on Debai's back. Debai brought Lin to a tall mountain. It was the 5th tallest mountain in Xiaoxian United University, Qiyang Mountain. Qiyang Mountain actually didn't have any special characteristics. It couldn't compare to Full Moon Mountain in terms of spirituality, couldn't compare to Blue Afterglow Peak in terms of scenery, and couldn't compare to Steep Cliff Mountain in terms of precipitousness. Perhaps it had no special characteristics, so students rarely came to this mountain. "Why did you bring me here?" And Lin was confused. "I brought you here to see the scenery, Woof." Debai chuckled, and Lin looked around. The trees were lush, and he could even see the exquisite and gorgeous celestial buildings in the distance. The scenery was indeed not bad. And Lin, "Debai, do you think that I and Lin have been very idle recently?" And Lin looked at the giant white dog in front of him and sighed. "You've become arrogant after all. Big Brother there really is scenery here. Look at that mountain." "What mountain is that?" "Woof." Debai pointed at the tall mountain a few kilometers away and said loudly, and Lin looked at the tall mountain in the distance. That's Full Moon Mountain. What's wrong? Debai's claws danced in the air, and a white cloud appeared between the two mountains. As the cloud and mist changed, ripples formed in the center of the cloud and mist. Then, the center of the cloud and mist reflected the scene of Full Moon Mountain like a mirror. Cloud mirror density adjusted. Field of view angle adjusted. Field of view condensed. Mirror image sharpened. Mirror image one-way masking. As Debai waved his claws like a magician, the white cloud mingled with the crowd of other white clouds, appearing extremely ordinary. And Lin's eyes finally widened as he looked at the white cloud, and he drew a sharp intake of breath. A sly smile appeared on Debai's face again. Big Brotherin, tell me this time, what do you see? Moon Lake. And Lin was beginning to stutter, but he was still very excited. This is the most famous hot spring in the school. There are female students bathing here every night. I used a one-way concealment technique on this white cloud. From their point of view, it's just a normal white cloud. But from our point of view, it's a high-definition magnified mirror. Debai spoke with a smug expression. He was sure that Big Brother and would love the scenery. Sure enough, and Lin stared at Debai with astonishment on his face. If you master mathematics, physics, and chemistry, you won't have to fear anyone under the heavens. Is this the combination of physics and the mighty immortal spell? Amazing! He felt like the way he peeked at Lin in the past was way too low class. This kind of peeking was a true master. Big Brotherin, do you like this scenery? Woof! Debai's lips curled up into a smile. I like it. And Lin looked at Debai with an expression of admiration, expressing his utmost respect to the veteran driver. Let's wait for night to fall now, woof. Debai spoke with a smug expression, and Lin suddenly thought of something. Wait, it's too dim at night. Will we still be able to see a clear image from the mirror? Debai nodded. Yes, we can. We can use the moon essence illumination technique, and it's a pretty good experience. I've been looking at it for 3 days, so there's no need to worry about that. Woof! And Lin nodded before suddenly coming to a realization. Debai, you've been looking at it for 3 days? Why did you only think of calling me now? And Lin chuckled coldly. Debai shuddered upon hearing this, and he immediately offered an explanation. I'm just scouting ahead of time. Woof! Isn't it enough to scout for a day? What's with 3 days? Also, if Xiaolan also went to take a bath, would you dare to look at it? And Lin's expression had already darkened with killing intent. Big Brotherin, I'm innocent. Xiaolan clearly hasn't gone to take a bath in the past 3 days. Furthermore, Lu Qianhuan and Su Qianyan haven't gone either. Debai, swear on my life that I won't do that to someone I'm familiar with. Woof woof. Debai tried to explain with all his might. Cut the crap, eat my fist. And Lin roared with rage. Thump, thump, thump. Bang, bang, bang. Clatter, clatter, clatter. Puff, puff, puff. After a long while, Debai lay on the ground with his face swollen and bruised. Tears of indignation welled up in his eyes. Big Brother and I, Debai, am absolutely loyal to you. Whenever there's a good view, the first person I think of to share it with is you. You have to believe me, woof. Debai expressed with a pitiable expression, and Lin didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the ball of white clouds. Debai immediately said, If Big Brother and doesn't like it, then I'll withdraw the white clouds. Woof. Wait. And Lin stopped him. Debai blinked his black eyes. Let's wait for nightfall. I want to enjoy the scenery for a while. And Lin clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the full moon mountain with a calm expression. Debai. Chapter 469. Debai stared at Lin's enigmatic expression with a perplexed expression. So Big Brother and wasn't against the scenery, but did it still want to get beaten up for nothing? Debai wanted to cry, but he could only stand by and silently accompany Lin until nightfall. Slowly, night began to fall. White mist began to rise from the beautiful moon pond as a rich, vital energy revolved around it, creating an ethereal and captivating scene. Lights appeared around the moon pond, bathing the clear spring water in a layer of faint light. From afar, the moon pond looked like a bright moon that had been left behind in the mountains. Moonlight enhancement technique. Dubai waved his doggy paw through the air, and the white clouds in the sky began to transform. And Lin and Dubai both widened their eyes as they stared at the scenes unfolding in the clouds. Amidst the rippling light, they could see that there were already a dozen or so women frolicking in the hot spring. Even though they were obscured by the white mist, they could still vaguely make out their delicate and supple bodies. They could also see the ripples caused by the water splashing against their snow-white bodies, as well as all sorts of enchanting scenes. Amazing! The scenery here was quite good. Big Brother and... Which girl do you think is pretty good? Dubai stuck out his tongue with excitement. With the cloud mirror as the center. There's that girl at 2 o'clock. She's really good. Her ripples are always rippling, and I can tell that she's very bouncy. And Lin appraised with a smile. Dubai nodded emphatically. She's also very big. Woof. And at 8 o'clock, there's that girl with long black hair. Her long hair clung tightly to her snow-white body, flowing down her lithe and graceful figure. That's also a scenic spot. And Lin couldn't help but praise. She's standing up. Woof. Dubai let loose a cry of surprise. The girl's tall and voluptuous body was faintly discernible within the white mist, and the water droplets hanging off her snow-white skin were like beautiful pearls that glowed with an alluring luster. Dubai and Enlin widened their eyes, and their nostrils flared slightly. Their faces were filled with excitement and excitement. She walked into the area with dense white mist. And Lin spoke with a disappointed expression. Dubai also had a helpless expression. It couldn't interfere with the white mist of the hot spring, because if it did, the fluctuation of the vitality would be discovered by the campus law enforcement team or the girls soaking in the hot spring. Big Brother, and look, 2 more women are walking in, and they're clearly of the highest quality. Woof! Dubai exclaimed excitedly, and Lin looked over and saw a woman in a blue dress and a woman in a green dress walking in side by side. They had graceful figures and elegant temperaments. Even though their faces were shrouded in white mist and couldn't be seen clearly, one could still guess that they were 2 super beauties. Then, when he took a closer look, the corner of his mouth twitched. Isn't that the jade barley ink garment? And that blue dress, isn't that the one that Su Chinyan always wears? Hey, Big Brother, these 2 celestial maidens are definitely amazing. Once they take off their clothes and walk into the area with light mist, we'll be able to admire them. Dubai wagged his tail with excitement. He amazing? And Lin looked at Dubai with a cold smile. Dubai's body suddenly trembled as a terrifying killing intent enveloped its entire body, causing its fur to stand on end. It raised its head and looked up at Enlin with shock and horror in its eyes. Big Brother, what are you doing? Thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, 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 clatter. Puff, puff, puff. Thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, 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 clatter. Puff, puff, puff. After a torrential barrage of attacks, Dubai lay on the ground with his face swollen and bruised again as tears streamed down his face. Big Brother, and what did I do wrong? Dubai couldn't even form a coherent sentence after being pummeled. Open your dog eyes and see who those 2 people are. And Lin pointed at the cloud mirror with rage in his eyes. Dubai opened his eyes and looked at the 2 women to find that they were just about to take off their clothes. But before he had a chance to see who they were, a torrential barrage of punches flew toward him again. Thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, 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 clatter. Puff, puff, puff. Dubai lay on the ground, barely breathing, and one of his eyes had been beaten to the point where he couldn't even open his eyes. Su Xiaolan and Su Chenyan have already begun to take off their clothes, and you still dare to look? And Lin chuckled coldly. Dabai, didn't you tell me to open my dog eyes and see clearly? What should I do? Meanwhile, within the moon pond, Su Xiaolan and Su Qianyun held hands as they made their way to the edge of the hot spring. There was an area here that was isolated from the steam and mist, so they could change into their towels. Su Xiaolan was just about to change when she discovered a faint ripple in the clouds in the distance. She turned her gaze toward the clouds in the distance. Classmate Xiaolan, what's wrong? Su Qianyun blinked her beautiful blue eyes curiously. Nothing. Wait for me for a moment. Don't change your clothes. I have something to take care of. A frosty expression appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as she silently made her way toward the backyard of the moon pond. What a brilliant technique! Her opponent was at least of the spirit nurturing stage, and she was extremely well versed in the Tao of clouds and mist. If it weren't for the fact that Su Xiaolan was of the soul formation stage and possessed the true dragon bloodline, which allowed her to detect the changes in the wind, clouds, and lightning, she probably wouldn't have been able to detect the ripples in the clouds and mist. She chuckled coldly. You dare to peep on girls bathing? Die. Cloud ripple analysis, energy angle analysis, optical angle calculation. Su Xiaolan suddenly rose into the air, and a pair of white flame wings spread open as a sonic boom cloud appeared behind her. Then she charged toward the Crimson Sun Mountain at a terrifying speed. On the Crimson Sun Mountain, Lin and Dabai saw Su Xiaolan rise into the air and tear through the air toward them. Holy F *CK, run, big brother N. Dabai yelled and immediately rose into the air, and Lin stared blankly at the woman in a jade dress charging toward him. He was so scared that his legs had turned to jelly, and he couldn't run anymore. He could clearly sense that Su Xiaolan had already discovered him. Su Xiaolan's expression had already changed from one of astonishment to one of rage. If Lin chose to run now, then even if he could *King escape, what would he do in the future? Kneeling on a washboard for a year? No, even kneeling on a durian for a year wouldn't be enough to redeem him. He might as well obediently admit his mistake. If he did so with a better attitude, perhaps Su Xiaolan would let him off the hook. That was it. Su Xiaolan's white flame wings swept through the night sky in a beautiful arc, sweeping past Lin's head and sweeping up a gust of scorching wind. She caught up to Dabai in just 2 seconds, and her slender legs swept through the air like a whirlwind, sending the fleeing Dabai flying back into the Crimson Sun Mountain. Boom! Dabai's white body was embedded into the ground beside Lin, and there was a look of despair on his face. Why did he have to be beaten up by Su Xiaolan after being beaten up by Lin? And Lin looked at Dabai with a sympathetic expression. Trying to escape from Su Xiaolan? How could he be so naive? Su Xiaolan had the bloodline of the vermilion bird, and even Lin might not be able to match her speed when she spread open her vermilion bird flaming wings, let alone Dabai, who hadn't even reached the soul formation stage yet. A woman in a jade dress descended from the sky with a pair of white flame wings flapping around her. Under the white moonlight, she slightly raised her chin, and her bearing was as holy and arrogant as the goddess of the 9th heaven. Her eyes contained a dangerous cold light. Hee peeping at girls bathing? Who gave you the guts to do that? Dabai. And Lin shuddered as he pointed at Dabai. He suddenly told me that there was a scenic view on the Crimson Sun Mountain, so I followed him here like an idiot. After that, I found out that he had the audacity to peek at girls bathing, so I beat him up on the spot. Just look at the injuries on his body, and you'll know that I'm not lying. And Lin spoke with sincerity and guilt on his face. Dabai, who was half paralyzed, was embedded in the ground. Chapter 470. Dabai's heart was filled with despair, and Lin's flawless excuse had completely broken his heart. Why? Why did I, Dabai, have to be slandered after being beaten by the couple? Was there still any justice? Was there still any law? A thought suddenly flashed through Dabai's mind. Celestial Maiden Xiaolan, I'm innocent. This was all Big Brother Anne's idea. He's the mastermind, and I'm just an accomplice. Dubai wailed before continuing. Big Brother and was the one who came up with this idea. When I saw your figure in the cloud mist mirror, I tried my best to stop Big Brother from peeping. But he beat me up in a fit of rage. Don't you know what kind of person Big Brother is? You have to believe me. Woof. Dubai glared at Lin as he spoke. Come on, let's hurt each other. Su Xiaolan. And Lin's legs gave out from under him again, and he immediately transmitted his voice to Lin. Dubai, shut up. It's better for one person to be beaten than for two people to be beaten. Dubai chuckled coldly. It's better for everyone to suffer than for one person to suffer alone. And Lin, he turned to Su Xiaolan with a sincere expression. Su Xiaolan, don't you know what kind of person I am? Sigh. Su Xiaolan heaved a forlorn sigh. Thump, thump, thump. Bang, bang, bang. Clatter, 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 clatter. Puff, puff, puff. Dubai was completely unmoved by this domestic violence scene. In fact, he felt like laughing a little. And Lin lay on the ground with a swollen face. He felt like Su Xiaolan's punches had become even more ferocious ever since she reached the soul formation stage, and his body was starting to feel a little overwhelmed. It was said that beating was love and scolding was pain. Su Xiaolan's love for him was growing deeper and deeper. Dubai was just about to say something sarcastic when a figure suddenly flashed toward him, followed by a torrential rain of fists. Thump, thump, thump. Bang, bang, bang. Clatter, clatter, clatter. Puff, puff, puff. Dubai lay in the pit like a dead dog. His eyes were hazy with tears, and he couldn't say a word. He counted. This was the 4th time he had been beaten tonight, and Lin had beaten him twice, and Su Xiaolan had beaten him twice. It was so symmetrical and harmonious. Sure enough, the price of looking at the scenery was so heavy that he couldn't breathe. Su Xiaolan patted her slightly red hands and said in a crisp voice, I know best what kind of people you two are, so your words can't be trusted. Let's just beat each of you once, it's fair. And Lin raised both hands in approval. Fairy Xiaolan is wise. Dubai, if you dare to peep on me again, I won't be using my fists, I'll be using my dragon sparrow sword. I'm going to castrate both of you. Su Xiaolan threatened in a frosty voice. A dragon sparrow sword suddenly appeared, with blue lightning flashing on one side and crimson divine flames surging into the sky on the other. And Lin and Dubai both felt a chill run down their spines, and they nodded repeatedly. Fairy Xiaolan, I swear there won't be a next time. And Lin promised. I also swear, Dubai said in a feeble voice. Su Xiaolan made a seal with her slender fingers, and the dragon sparrow sword suddenly expanded to over 10 meters in length and 2 meters in width. Get up here, Su Xiaolan commanded. Where to? And Lin was quite uneasy. I'll take you to the detention room. You'll have to plead guilty if you break the law, Su Xiaolan replied. And Lin, Dubai, well, Fairy Xiaolan were already so familiar with each other. Can you let me off the hook this time? I still want to save face. And Lin pleaded with a fawning expression. You still have face? I'm already being very merciful by not cutting you with my sword. Get up here. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed as she scolded in a loud voice, and Lin could only dejectedly climb onto the dragon sparrow sword in the face of Su Xiaolan's tyranny. Su Xiaolan's expression darkened upon seeing that Dubai was still lying motionless in the crater. Dubai, what do you mean by this? Dubai replied with a grief-stricken expression. I'm severely injured and can't move. Help me, woof. Thump, thump, thump. Slap, slap, slap. Clatter, 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 clatter. Puff, puff, puff. His entire body felt like it was falling apart, and he had no energy left to stand up. And Lin, why did you have to be so heavy-handed? Su Xiaolan was a little annoyed. And Lin, Dubai, fine, you have big breasts, so you're right. Thus, Dubai was lifted onto the dragon sparrow sword by Su Xiaolan, and they flew into the air toward the detention room. Within the detention room, the captain of the enforcement team, Yang Xian, was on duty. His goddess, Qinwen, had kindly gifted him a chicken drumstick, which made him feel extremely elated. At this moment, the ringing of a sword sounded in the air, followed by an extremely vast and profound aura. He had only sensed this aura when he was facing his teacher. He didn't hesitate any longer and immediately walked out of the detention room. He was greeted by a scene that made his lips twitch. An exquisitely beautiful woman in a jade dress was escorting a man and a dog with swollen noses and noses. Furthermore, the man and the dog looked extremely familiar. F***CK. Wasn't that Lin and Dubai? And that woman was far too familiar to Yang Xan. She was the university's second soul formation stage cultivator, and she was also a supremely talented cultivator. Why was she escorting a man and a dog here? Sister Su Xiaolan, what are you? Yang Xian was a little dumbstruck. Oh, I'm escorting them here to turn themselves in. I guess it counts as turning themselves in. I'll give them some face, Su Xiaolan replied. Turn themselves in? What did Senior and Lin and Dubai do? Yang Xian was astonished. And Lin was the #1 legend of the university, and it would be a disaster if he were to be escorted into the detention room. One had to realize that Lin and Hongdo had been sent into the detention room for fighting, and he was responsible for arresting them. Goddess Qinwen almost had a falling out with him, and in the end, those 2B asterisk stars even blew up the detention room. Hence, he couldn't help but shudder upon hearing that Lin was going to be sent into the detention room again. Xiaolan, give them some face, Lin said. Su Xiaolan chuckled, and Lin and Dubai peeped on a female student soaking in the hot spring, so punish them accordingly. And Lin, Yang Xian's lips twitched. What the hell was going on? He had heard rumors about the relationship between Su Xiaolan and Lin. There were rumors that the two of them were very likely to become Dao partners. Then, the current situation was like a husband visiting a prostitute, getting caught by his wife, and then being sent to the police station. Under normal circumstances, wouldn't the wife just beat the husband up? Not only did she beat the husband up, but she was also sent to the police station. They were truly the model Dao partners of the celestial court. Sure enough, the television dramas of the mortal world were all lies. Yang Xian didn't know what to say. He forced a smile onto his face. Sister Su Xiaolan really is a good student who abides by the law. He refused to detain Lin from the bottom of his heart. However, she had already delivered herself to his doorstep, so he couldn't just reject her, right? Of course. If we don't curb this kind of behavior, there will be countless other perverts in the future. We must punish these people severely. Su Xiaolan spoke in a righteous manner, and Lin, Dubai, Yang Xen didn't know what to say. Were they really that close? Why did they look like enemies? Ahem. How about this? If you turn yourself in, your punishment will be reduced. According to the school rules, you should be detained for 7 days. Now I'll detain you for 5 days. Yang Xian flashed the sign, and Lin and Dubai both heaved a sigh of relief. It would be great if their punishment could be reduced. But I heard that Dubai is a repeat offender, right? He and Zhao Huayin also peeped on him once during his first year. Su Xiaolan suddenly spoke. Oh, right. Yang Xian's eyes lit up. Dubai is a repeat offender, so his punishment will be doubled. Dubai, you'll be locked up for 10 days. Yang Xian spoke again. Dubai's body shuddered, and his mouth gaped open. There was a blank and lifeless expression on his face. Su Xiaolan nodded with satisfaction. I've wasted a lot of time. I'm going back to soak in the hot spring. I hope you have a good time in there. She waved goodbye to the dejected duo like they were old friends before flying away on her sword. What a woman who comes and goes like the wind. She leaves after she's done, hiding her identity and reputation. Yang Xian sighed with emotion as he looked at the green-robed figure. He then called for the other enforcers to escort Lin and Dubai into the detention cell. Thus, Lin and Dabai went back in. Chapter 471. Moon Pond. Su Xiaolan flew back on her sword to find Su Qinyan still waiting for her. Classmate Xiaolan, what did you do after leaving for so long? Su Qinyan asked curiously. Su Xiaolan didn't expect Su Qinyan to really be waiting for her, so she was a little embarrassed. She was just about to tell her about Lin, but she decided to save him some face, so she made up a random excuse. Su Qinyan didn't really care about that, so she nodded innocently before dragging Su Xiaolan to the hot spring. At the same time, in the school's detention room, Dabai, this place sure is nostalgic. Thinking back, this was where we first met, right? And Lin sighed with emotion. That's right, you were just a pure and kind boy who didn't know how to play tricks. You were so much more adorable than your current sinister self, woof. Dabai looked at Lin with a resentful expression. And Lin knew that his betrayal of his teammate had dealt a heavy blow to Dabai, so he consoled. Dabai, we're comrades who share blessings and sorrows now. Let's just forget about what happened in the past. Share blessings? The Dabai who was detained for 10 days doesn't want to talk to the B*TCH, who was detained for 5 days, woof. Dabai chuckled coldly. And Lin? He looked at the injuries on Dabai's body and enthusiastically pulled out a spirit pill from his storage ring with a smile. Dabai, you're quite heavily injured. Eat a spirit pill. Dabai slapped Lin's spirit pill away. You win. I have my own spirit pill. I don't need to eat yours. With that said, he took out a healing spirit pill from his storage ring and swallowed it by himself. The corners of Lin's mouth twitched. Wasn't the pill Dabai was swallowed by him in the past? Why did he sound so righteous? He looked at the pitch-black walls around him and shook his head with a sigh. He then took out the frying pan. After being detained for 5 days, it seemed that he would have to put aside the matter of selling steamed buns for a while. I haven't used the flavor buff from the frying pan yet, so I'll cook a dish in my cell to reward myself. Dabai's eyes lit up at the sight of the frying pan. What should I cook? And Lin muttered to himself. Make beef fried rice. Use the yak meat from Bull Demon King's ranch to make fried rice. Woof! Dabai pounced over and interrupted excitedly. And Lin, you're not angry anymore? You can be angry after this meal, woof. Dabai stuck out his tongue, and Lin chuckled coldly. Dabai looked at the frying pan in Lin's hand and gritted his teeth. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not angry anymore. Big brother do you think we have a grudge against each other? Woof. Dabai had taken Lin to enjoy the scenery in order to ensure that Dabai wouldn't ignore his share of steamed buns. Furthermore, he also wanted to compete with Lin for Dabai's favor, so there was no point in antagonizing Lin. Besides, he was already used to Lin's despicable ways. He's just being despicable for the sake of the frying pan. I'll forgive him, and Lin smiled triumphantly. Conquering a beast pet was easy. All he had to do was conquer his stomach. Thus, Lin pulled out some ingredients from his storage ring and began to cook beef fried rice in his cell. Yang Xian was working the night shift in the office of the campus detention center. Ever since Lin had been detained, he had been feeling uneasy. He had a nagging feeling that Lin was going to cause trouble. Sigh. I hope he can behave himself and not cause any trouble, Yang Xian muttered to himself before picking up the drumstick on the table with a blissful smile on his face. This was a drumstick that Goddess Qin had specially gifted to him. What was the saying again? The gift was light, but the sentiment was heavy. Qin hadn't gifted him a drumstick, but a sentiment. He caressed the glossy drumstick and took a bite as a blissful expression appeared on his face. However, right at this moment, an indescribable aroma suddenly wafted toward him. This smell, it smells so good. Yang Xian's eyes widened as he swallowed uncontrollably as he inhaled the extremely alluring aroma. The other 2 enforcers on duty also looked around with astonishment on their faces. My God, this aroma is giving me goosebumps. Where did it come from? I'm so hungry. I can sense the flow of the aroma. It seems to be coming from the detention center. Could it be? The two enforcers looked at each other as they involuntarily gulped. Young Chef, God, and Lin. Young Xan exclaimed as he inhaled deeply. As expected of his reputation. But I won't give in. Young Xan looked at the drumstick in his hand and bit down hard on it. However, his drumstick suddenly became bland and tasteless due to the powerful contrast in flavor. This tastes so disgusting. Young Xan muttered with a bitter expression as he chewed on the drumstick. The crisp footsteps outside the door abruptly stopped. Young Xan looked out the door, and his pupils suddenly contracted as his mouth gaped open. Qinwen, let me explain. A woman in blue stood outside the door with a bag of spirit fruits in her hand. A hint of grief appeared on her face before it transformed into a cold sneer. Huh, that's right. Such a disgusting drumstick is a stain on your mouth. I shouldn't have brought it to you. The woman in blue turned around and quickly left as she spoke. Wait, Qinwen, this is all a misunderstanding. Young Xan yelled as he ran out the door and chased after her. Hey, Captain, we're on duty right now, the two enforcers yelled. However, Young Xan ran away without even turning back. He didn't care about being on duty anymore. He was about to lose his future Dao partner. What the hell was he supposed to be doing? And Lin again. And Lin again. Can't he just let me go? Young Xan chased after Qinwen as he cursed the man who was cooking in the detention center 10,000 times over in his mind. He was already so scary when he was cooking. Was he going to let people live? The remaining two enforcers looked at each other before continuing to stand guard out of professional ethics. The aroma of the beef fried rice wafted through the air like a seductive slut, constantly teasing their noses. Words like so delicious and so delicious sounded from within the detention center. The two enforcers felt an irrepressible desire. That hunger, that thirst was not something a normal person could endure. This was King poisoning in the middle of the night, and it was lethal poison. Thus, the two enforcers passed this torturous period in a state of ecstasy. Young Xan had already returned to his desk and was silently gnawing on the cold chicken drumstick. His eyes were filled with tears, but he was trying his best not to let them fall. The two enforcers were already a little dazed by the aroma, but they finally came to their senses after seeing young Xan's expression. They heaved a sigh of relief. It's okay. The captain looks even worse off than us. Chapter 472. 5 days later, and Lin bade farewell to Dabai with an affectionate expression. Dabai, I'll be waiting for you outside. All of the members of the university enforcement team saw and Lin off with tears streaming down their faces. They had had enough of being tortured by that terrifying aroma every single day, and they could only hope that Lin would abide by the law and never come back here again. And Lin walked out of the detention cell and was a little disappointed to find that Su Xiaolan wasn't there to pick him up. An adorable puppy, Tui. It was Little Wolf. The snowy white Little Wolf stuck out its tongue, widened its eyes, and wagged its tail as it waited for Lin outside with an adorable expression. Master, welcome back. Even though the Great Revolution has yet to succeed, Little Wolf is still willing to follow in your footsteps. The white-scaled wolf god spoke with a fawning expression, and Lin, had this wolf become proficient in flattery recently? And Lin returned to his dorm room to find an unexpected guest waiting for him there. Hey, classmate and Lin, I knew I would only be able to see you today. A handsome man with a transcendent aura was waving at Lin with a smile on his face. Master Mingyuan. And Lin couldn't help but let loose a cry of surprise upon seeing the man before him. You've broken through to the return to void stage? Haha, it's all thanks to classmate and Lin that I was able to progress to the return to void stage. Celestial immortal Ming Yuan smiled, but there wasn't much excitement on his face. Instead, there was a calm and collected expression on his face. I wouldn't dare to take credit for that. It's all thanks to your exceptional aptitude. and Lin waved his hand dismissively. He then sat down across from Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan and brought out his signature dish for foreign guests. Buns ignored by dogs. No, this is all thanks to you. On a deeper level, this is all fate. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan casually ate a bun, and his body shuddered as an expression of shock appeared on his face. This bun is fated to be with me and Lin. If fate allows it, then eat more. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan didn't hold back and quickly swept the steamer full of buns on the table before getting down to business. Before I broke through, I said that I would give you a big gift after I successfully broke through. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan, I'm not someone who goes back on his word, so please accept this bead. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan handed over a white bead. This is... And Lin could not sense any obvious energy, fluctuations from the bead. Clearly, it was not a spiritual or immortal artifact. It should be some kind of special item. This is an item that combines my Tao of divination, the Pearl of Fate. As long as you inject your vital energy into this bead, it will be able to synthesize the information of heaven and earth and determine the user's fate for the next 10 days, Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan explained. And Lin's interest was instantly piqued upon hearing this. This was some King good stuff. This pearl can only be used once a day, and it consumes a lot of vital energy. You must be careful when using it. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan injected vital energy into the Ming Yuan pearl. Immediately afterward, a yellow light appeared on the surface of the Ming Yuan pearl. The color of the Ming Yuan pearl represents good or bad luck. Yellow represents neither good nor bad luck. Green represents good luck, and red represents bad luck. You can give it a try. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan handed the bead to Lin as he spoke, and Lin accepted the bead with a smile. Red, yellow, and green? It feels like the traffic lights on the road. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan laughed heartily. You don't say. The color is indeed inspired by the traffic lights of the mortal world. And Lin attempted to inject vital energy into the Ming Yuan pearl, and an extremely powerful suction force suddenly erupted from the bead, sucking away his energy. At the same time, a ripple spread outward before merging into heaven and earth. The Ming Yuan pearl lit up. It was purple. Weren't there only 3 colors? Red, yellow, and green? And Lin blinked in confusion. Teacher, what's the meaning of this purple? Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan took a deep breath, and a sympathetic expression suddenly appeared on his face as he looked at Lin. This is called turning purple from red, and Lin, I'm screwed? And Lin felt a chill run down his spine. It's all right, student Lin. Fate is not set in stone. You can change your future. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan spoke with a serious expression. How do I change it? And Lin asked in an urgent voice. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan paused momentarily before replying. This is a little complicated, but let me give you an example. Let's say you're going to die tomorrow. Can you give me another example? And Lin's lips twitched. All right. Let's say you're going to die the day after tomorrow. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan nodded. And Lin, let's say you're going to die because a gargantuan meteor crashed into Shoshian United University, pulverizing the entire floating continent and killing all of the living beings on it. Regardless of whether you work hard to cultivate, skip classes, or hide at home, or hide in a place that you think is safe in the school, you will still face death. This is the inertial force of the river of fate. When death becomes the mainstream of your fate, then no matter what you do, the tributaries will always draw you back to the destination of death. If you want to break free from this mainstream force of fate, you'll have to make an extremely massive change, which will require an extremely large amount of power. Let's say you're an extremely conservative person. You're supposed to go to class today, but you suddenly decide to go to the East Sea to play. This is completely out of character for someone like you and Lin. Thus, this will drastically alter the trajectory of your fate. thereby allowing you to avoid being struck by the meteor. Or maybe you're originally at the soul formation stage, but your power suddenly skyrocketed to the Tao integration stage, thereby allowing you to ignore the impact of the meteor. The more unconventional a change is, the more it can alter the future that you're going to face. And Lin understood what celestial immortal Mingyuan was trying to say. For someone with a fate as red as his, he would probably have to make an extremely massive change in order to avoid this calamity. Go, classmate in Lin! You're the most unpredictable person I've ever met. I'm sure you'll be able to turn this calamity into a blessing. Celestial immortal Mingyuan suddenly grabbed onto Lin's hand and offered words of encouragement, and Lin nodded. Don't worry, teacher. I'll go to the Moon Palace and lie low for now. What do you want to do? Celestial immortal Mingyuan stared at Lin with shock on his face. Hee, Chang Yi is invincible in the Moon Palace. I'll go there and hide for 10 days. What calamity could possibly befall me? And Lin chuckled coldly. Celestial immortal Mingyuan. Celestial immortal Mingyuan fell silent. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with Lin's words, but something felt off. If that's the case, then take care, classmate Lin. Celestial immortal Mingyuan stood up and bade farewell. And Lin stood up and accompanied Celestial immortal Mingyuan out the door before returning to his room. He thought about it for a moment before pulling out his vermilion bird mirror. Mirror, mirror, can you tell me my fortune? Master, I'm just an erudite mirror. I'm not a fortune teller, the vermilion bird mirror replied in an extremely disdainful voice. Sigh, I heard that Chang Yi will become more powerful in the Moon Palace. Can you tell me how powerful Chang Yi is in the Moon Palace? And Lin continued. She's on the moon, and with the power of the true moon, she won't have to fear Tao integration stage mighty figures, the vermilion bird mirror replied. And Lin nodded with a pleased expression. Sigh, I haven't seen big sister Chang Yi and little sister Yu too for a long time. It's about time I pay them a visit. Vermilion bird mirror. Chapter 473. And Lin felt like this matter couldn't be delayed any longer, so he immediately set off for the Moon Palace. Once he arrived at the Moon Palace, he didn't care about any random calamities. As long as he could cling onto big sister Chang Yi's thighs, everything would be fine. And Lin walked out of the dorm and was just about to leap onto his brick. A ripple suddenly erupted between heaven and earth, and a pillar of light descended from the sky, striking his body. This was a pillar of light imbued with the power of space. A chill ran down Lin's spine. He suddenly thought back to the calamity that was so red it was almost purple. F***CK. Was this an enemy attack aimed at him? Who dared to attack in the territory of the Celestial Court? Did they have to be so violent and direct? Why did things happen so quickly? Did they not even give him time to react? I'm going to report them for cheating. Just as Lin was cursing in his heart, he was suddenly struck by a rush of dizziness. After a moment, he had arrived at an extremely massive white palace, and Lin's body tensed up and he was extremely focused. He even gripped his evil slaying sword in his hand. However, he faltered in the next second. There were several dozen people in the palace, and all of them were looking around with confusion on their faces. Furthermore, all of their auras were extremely powerful. And Lin! A familiar voice suddenly sounded, and Lin turned around to discover a man in extravagant armor, holding a dragon-patterned spear, looking at him with a surprised expression. Senior Wang, why are you here? And Lin exclaimed in surprise. This man was none other than the former number 1 on the Immortal Rankings board, Wang Xuanzhan. Wang Xuanzhan made his way toward Lin with his spear still stained with blue blood. I don't know either. I was still fighting enemies in the holy glacial lands. During the battle, the teleportation badge suddenly lit up, and I was teleported here. Why are you here as well? I was blasted down by a pillar of light from the sky, and then here I am. King, thought it was an enemy attack and that I was going to fall into a monster's lair. Thankfully, the situation doesn't seem to be that bad." And Lin heaved a sigh of relief. Wang Xuanzhan chuckled. "They're probably all summoned here by the power of the Celestial Court. There are many familiar faces here, and they're all renowned, powerful beings of the Celestial Court. Look at that blue-haired man. His name is Qin Daoyin, and he's 3 years older than me. He used to be #1 on the Immortal Rankings board, and he should be at the late soul formation stage now. As for that short girl, her name is Lu Chu Chu. She's a senior, 10 years older than me, and she's currently at the soul formation pinnacle stage. I've seen her portrait in the university's Hall of Fame. As for the immortals who reside in the Celestial Court, I'm sure I don't need to introduce them." And Lin nodded seriously. He was now carefully observing the dozens of people in the palace, and the more he looked, the more frightened he became. Including him, there were 60 soul formation stage cultivators, and almost all of them were at least at the soul formation final stage. There were also 5 people whose cultivation bases he was unable to ascertain, but they were very easy to recognize. Anyone who studied in the Celestial Court would recognize them. There was the Day Patrol God, who wore a red robe and had eyes as bright as the sun. He held a Day Patrol Immortal badge in his hand. There was the Night Patrol God, who wore a black robe and was enshrouded in black mist with long chains trailing behind him. There was the Giant Spirit God, who was at least 3 meters tall and wielded a massive crimson axe. There was the handsome Lu Dongbin, who had a sword strapped to his back and was one of the 8 immortals of the Celestial Court's Sword Palace. There was the stunningly beautiful Celestial Maiden He, who stood atop the projection of a lotus flower and held a blossoming lotus in her slender hand. And Lin looked at the 5 people nearby with curiosity. They were all extremely renowned immortals of the Celestial Court, and he wondered how their stories differed from the legends on Earth. Lu Dongbin seemed to have sensed in Lin's gaze, and he suddenly turned to look at Lin with a polite smile. And Lin's heart thumped as he thought to himself, so handsome. Right at this moment, a purple-robed man with a cold expression suddenly appeared on the white jade throne in the White Palace. Everyone in the palace fell silent as soon as he appeared. Everyone turned to look at the man on the throne, as if he were the center of the entire heaven and earth. And Lin was also very familiar with this face. This was Emperor Ziwei of the Celestial Court. Emperor Ziwei looked at the several dozen powerful beings present, and a faint smile appeared on his face as he spoke in a voice that echoed throughout heaven and earth. "Welcome, 65 elites of the Heavenly Court. I've suddenly teleported all of you here because I have an urgent matter that requires your assistance." He paused for a moment before continuing. "The ancient Taichu realm, which only appears once every 500 years, will be opening a passageway 10 years ahead of schedule. The passageway will open tomorrow." Everyone erupted into an uproar upon hearing this. Of course, there were also people who were just as dumbstruck as Lin was. Emperor Ziwei still provided a thoughtful explanation. "The ancient Taichu realm is a very ancient world. Currently, the consensus is that it is the predecessor of the Tai-Chu continent. Currently, that world is still crumbling, and its surface area has already shrunk to less than 1% of the size of the Tai-Chu continent. During the process of the world's collapse, something called realm essence crystals will appear, and these things are extremely important to the construction of the world." Emperor Ziwei waved a hand as he spoke, and 5 crystal-like objects of different colors appeared before everyone. When these crystals appeared, a terrifying ripple began to proliferate outward, and heaven and earth seemed to have become a little viscous, as if they had encountered some kind of restrictive power. Realm essence crystals are extremely important materials for the construction of a world, and they can only appear in a collapsing world. These things might not be of much use to you, but they are extremely useful to the Celestial Court. We will purchase these realm essence crystals at a high price using spirit stones. 1 white realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 10,000 spirit stones, 1 green realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 30,000 spirit stones. 1 blue realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 100,000 spirit stones. 1 red realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 200,000 spirit stones, and 1 golden realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 1,000,000 spirit stones. At this point, many people were already staring at the realm essence crystals with a scorching light in their eyes. Even a tycoon like Lin couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva in envy. A single golden realm essence crystal was almost equivalent to the wealth of a return to void stage mighty figure. How could they not be tempted by this kind of price? Due to the restrictions imposed by the laws of the collapsing world, all beings who have come into contact with the power of the Tao integration stage will be rejected and devoured. As such, even returned to void final stage celestial immortals are unable to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. We can only send cultivators of the return to void intermediate stage and below to enter. The ancient Tai Chu realm is further divided into 2 realms. The void star section allows return to void stage cultivators to enter, while the ancient divine section allows soul formation stage cultivators to enter. Currently, there are only 16 ancient powers on the continent that have passageways into the ancient Tai Chu realm. Our celestial court also has a passageway that allows 5 return to void stage cultivators and 30 soul formation stage cultivators to enter. The ancient Tai Chu realm contains countless ancient inheritances and mystic treasures. At the same time, it is also an extremely perilous place. There are abnormal spaces, mutant beasts, and foreign tribes that are extremely violent. In fact, the celestial court has even been wiped out in the past. All of you are the most elite forces of the celestial court, so I will give all of you an hour to consider whether you want to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm or not. In the end, I will filter out the final list of names based on your applications. Emperor Ziwei closed his eyes and waited silently as his voice fell, and Lin finally understood what Emperor Ziwei was trying to say at this moment. F***CK. He was being forcefully summoned to open a dungeon. If Lin had not had his fortune read, he might have wanted to give this a try. However, he was now extremely popular, and he was being asked to go to an alternate realm to dig for treasures? Wasn't this clearly a **king trap for him to jump into? This was a rare opportunity, so he might as well give it to these seniors. After all, there were 60 soul formation stage cultivators in the palace. Emperor Ziwei had only chosen 30, so the competition was going to be fierce. And Lin was giving this golden opportunity to others. He was a good person with unquestionable integrity. Others would definitely be grateful to him. Just as these thoughts were running through his mind, a ding-dong sounded from his system. Chapter 474. If he had a choice, and Lin really didn't want to look at this **TTY Systems missions. Sigh. If only he could send this despicable system out to harm others. This thought suddenly appeared in Lin's mind. For some reason, he suddenly thought of that old immortal, and his body shuddered as a chill ran down his spine. F***CK. I feel like I've been screwed over by him. However, Lin didn't have the system's transfer technology, and he didn't have the guts to transfer the system anyway. After all, his cultivation style had already reached an unfathomable level. If he lost this system, he really wouldn't know how to cultivate anymore. Even though he didn't know how to cultivate, even with the system, it was still better than having no direction. He opened the system interface as he heaved a forlorn sigh. Sure enough, the Special Missions tab was glowing with a despicable light. Detected that host has a chance to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. Now assigning the following mission. Obtain 10 golden realm essence crystals within a month and absorb them. Mission success. Obtain the embryonic body of the war god. Mission failure. Host will become a eunuch for 100 years. Note, this mission cannot be declined. And Lin chuckled coldly as the veins on his forehead bulged. He had been a eunuch for 3 years before, but now he was a eunuch for 100 years. F***CKU. This was too much. even though he would remain chaste for Su Xiaolan for 100 years. That didn't mean he could endure being separated from his second brother for 100 years. And Lin was now caught in a dilemma. If he wanted to complete this mission, he had to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. However, doing so would be equivalent to jumping into the crater of a meteorite. He would have to follow the flow of fate and walk toward a bright future. If he wanted to make a drastic change, which meant that he had to escape the flow of fate, then he would have to make a decision that he would never have made in the past. He would become a eunuch for 100 years. Tears welled up in Lin's eyes as he thought about this. He didn't think that the flow of fate would be so strong. This was an extremely difficult change to make. And Lin, are you planning to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm? Wang Xuanzhan suddenly asked. And Lin looked at Wang Xuanzhan and replied with a question of his own. If there were two choices placed in front of you, one was that you would have to face an extremely terrifying calamity, and the other was that you could escape from danger but would become a eunuch for 100 years, which would you choose? Hearing this, Wang Xuanzhan's cold face convulsed slightly. I, Wang Xuanzhan, am a man of indomitable spirit, he said solemnly. I, Wang Xuanzhan, am a man of indomitable spirit. I can't be a eunuch for even a day. And Lin heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. I think so too. This is a man's dignity. Even if the road ahead is a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, second brother can't be lost. Yes, that was it. This is our bottom line, and it is also our principle. No calamity can make us yield. Wang Xuanzhan was burning with passion. Wow, what are you guys talking about? It sounds like it's something awesome. At this moment, a beautiful woman in a red dress made her way over to them. There was a pair of golden bracelets on her fair wrists. Seeing that it was a beautiful woman, and Lin and Wang Xuanzhan didn't dare to continue discussing this topic. They immediately blushed and changed the subject. Wang Xuanzhan explained with an awkward yet polite smile. We were discussing whether we should go to the ancient Tai Chu realm or not. And Lin nodded. Then we came to the conclusion that we can't back down if we're a man. Does that mean women can back down? The woman covered her mouth as a vibrant smile appeared on her face, and Lin chuckled dryly. If it weren't for that F** Ketup mission, he would definitely back down. Hello, my name is Yang Ruoling, and my Dao title is Lingyu. The woman introduced herself. Hello, my name is Wang Xuanzhan, and my Dao title is Qing Kong. Wang Xuanzhan also introduced himself in a polite manner. They had already introduced themselves, so Lin could only say, Hello, Fairy Lingyu. My name is Lin, but I don't have a Dao title yet. Huh, you're Lin from the Celestial Court? The woman's eyes lit up. I heard from Department Head Chin of the Dark Marshlands Executive Department that your Dao title is the Tamer of Divine Lightning? Wang Xuanzhan smiled. Classmate Lin has many Dao titles, such as Poison Lord, Heaven-Pointing Taoist, Baoshin, and Lin's chest constricted upon hearing this, but he was roaring with rage in his heart. That's a Dao title? You're talking about AF** King Dao title. Are you guys crazy? Or do you think I and Lin am crazy to use such a title as a Dao title? After a short conversation, Lin learned that Yang Ruoling was also their senior sister. She was over 100 years older than them, and she was also one of the most influential figures in the Celestial Court. However, she had been stuck at the soul formation pinnacle stage for many years and was unable to find an opportunity to cross over. She was most likely not going to give up on this opportunity to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. All right, the time for consideration is over. Those who have decided to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm, please place a wisp of your divine sense into this white bead, and I will begin the selection process. Emperor Ziwei's voice suddenly sounded. Most of the people in the White Palace sprang into action, and Lin gritted his teeth and also placed a wisp of his divine sense into the bead. Within the palace, the 5 return to Void Stage Immortals had already been decided. Among the 60 soul formation stage Earth immortals, only 2 gave up on the right to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. This meant that among the 58 soul formation stage Earth immortals, 28 would be eliminated. This was quite an intense competition. Soon, Emperor Ziwei decided on the list of people who would be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. The list of people who will be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm has been decided. The Day Patrol God, Night Patrol God, Giant Spirit God, Lu Dongbin, and Celestial Maiden, he will be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. The ancient divine realm will be entered by Butang, Long Xinhong, Qin Daoyan, Lu Chu Chu, Wang Xuanzhan, and Yang Ruoling. Emperor Ziwei announced the list of people who would be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. Some people were ecstatic, while others were dejected and disappointed. And Lin's expression was different from everyone else's. He was in shock, as if he had been struck by lightning. His expression froze on his face, and his mouth gaped open as if he had heard some extremely terrifying information. His name wasn't on the list. His name wasn't on the list of people who would be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. Wang Xuanzhan offered words of consolation upon seeing Lin's strange expression. "It's all right, Mr. Lin. The path of cultivation is very long, and this world is also very big. There are countless opportunities waiting for you. You've only lost one opportunity, it's no big deal." And Lin murmured to himself, "You won't understand. To you, this is just a lost opportunity, but to me, this is like losing my little brother. Huh?" Wang Xuanzhan stared at Lin with a confused expression. Tears welled up in Lin's eyes, and he suddenly burst into laughter. "So that's how it is. Is this what it means to be a calamity that's almost purple? Entering the incomparably perilous ancient Tai Chu realm was a calamity. Being a eunuch for 100 years was also an extremely terrifying calamity for him. His mission was destined to fail, and he was destined to be a eunuch for 100 years. Wasn't it a little too difficult to divert his fate from this calamity? There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, and there was nothing he could do. Chapter 475. And Lin suddenly clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "I won't give up." He turned his gaze toward the throne in the palace as he spoke. There was no time left. He had to secure a spot to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm within this short period of time. And Lin took a deep breath, and his expression became extremely determined as he made his way toward Emperor Ziwei. Emperor Ziwei opened his eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his face as he looked at Lin walking toward him. And Lin extended a respectful salute before cutting straight to the chase. "Emperor Ziwei, I want to secure a spot to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. I feel like I'm no less powerful than some of the seniors who have entered the ancient Tai Chu realm, so please give me a chance." "Oh, Mr. Lin, I didn't think you would have the courage to venture into a perilous place." Emperor Ziwei paused momentarily before continuing. "I know you're quite powerful, and you do deserve a spot on the list to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. However, I refuse. You definitely can't enter." And Lin was rooted to the spot upon hearing such a direct rejection. He only asked after a few seconds, "Why?" "Because I can see that your glabella has turned black, and it's not suitable for you to travel. After all, you're even more important to the celestial court than the average celestial immortal," Emperor Ziwei replied with a meaningful expression. And Lin was stunned once again. His glabella had turned black? What the F***CK? Was his calamity already this obvious? And Lin took a deep breath before replying in a firm voice. "Obey and become immortal. Defy and become an immortal. If I run and hide every time I encounter any difficulty, how will I be able to reach the pinnacle of the great Tao?" Emperor Ziwei's eyes lit up. "Oh, that's right." A satisfied smile appeared on Lin's face. Thankfully, he had read many cultivation novels in the past, so he wasn't afraid of running out of lines. "I am willing to dedicate my youth and blood to obtain realm essence crystals so that I can contribute to the construction of the celestial court. I want to bring the celestial court back to its former glory." And Lin became more and more enthusiastic as he spoke. Emperor Ziwei, how about this? Mighty Spirit God still has a mission to guard the southern heavenly gate, so it's a little inappropriate to force him to go to the ancient Tai Chu realm. How about you take his place and go to the Void Star section? Emperor Ziwei suggested with a smile. Void Star section? Isn't that a place that only returned to Void stage mighty figures can enter? I can't enter at all. And Lin was astonished. Only the ancient divine division has a cultivation-based restriction, Emperor Ziwei explained. The Void Star section doesn't have too many cultivation-based restrictions. All cultivators below the return to Void intermediate stage are allowed to enter. It's just that the passageway can only accommodate so few people, and the place is too dangerous. That's why we're sending return to Void stage celestial immortals there. And Lin was having a mental breakdown. He was a soul formation stage cultivator, and he had to play with a bunch of return to Void stage cultivators. This was a perilous place where even return to Void stage mighty figures could perish. He didn't have that kind of courage, not even 100 Liang Jingru. What's wrong? I've given you a chance, but you're backing out now? Didn't you say that those who submit will become mortals, and those who resist will become immortals? Emperor Ziwei couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of Lin's hesitant expression. F***CK. What was the difference between going to the Void Star section and committing suicide? Of course, he had to hesitate. Now that he thought about it, it didn't seem like a bad idea to live the rest of his life with Su Xiaolan for 100 years. Haha. All right, Mr. Lin, I won't scare you anymore. A mischievous expression suddenly appeared on Emperor Ziwei's face as he pulled out a black robe from his storage ring and handed it to Lin. And Lin didn't know what this robe was, but he had no reason not to accept it since it was a gift from someone. He accepted the black robe to find that there was a faint white light shimmering on the surface of the robe, as if there were countless stars in the night sky. This is the illusionary star robe. It can hide you from the detection of star beasts, and it also has the ability to disguise your cultivation base. Only mighty figures of the Tao integration stage or above will be able to see through this disguise. This is an immortal tool, and I'm giving it to you now. After entering the ancient divine division, I need you to help me collect a stardust fruit from the huge starry mountain, Emperor Ziwei said with a smile, and Lin was ecstatic to hear this. Which means, I can enter the ancient divine division now? Emperor Ziwei nodded. That's right. You will be the 31st person to enter the ancient divine division. Our celestial court's passageway to the ancient divine division has been inspected after the commotion in the ancient Tai Chu realm, and we have discovered that there is one more person that can pass through. Are you surprised? And Lin surprised my A** guess. Why did they intentionally leave one spot open? He had a feeling that someone had dug a pit and was waiting to jump into it. He couldn't help but ask, Senior Ziwei, how did you know I would ask you for a spot to enter the ancient divine division? A profound smile appeared on Emperor Ziwei's face. I calculated it. And Lin was struck by a sense of deep veneration. So impressive. Emperor Ziwei thought to himself, I have 100 ways to make you enter the ancient divine division regardless of whether you come to beg me or not. As the future hope of the celestial court, you have to go to the ancient divine division even if you don't want to. And Lin stowed the illusionary star robe into his storage ring before departing. Wang Xuanzhan and Yang Ruoling immediately made their way over to him. And Lin, what did you talk to Emperor Ziwei about? Wang Xuanzhan asked. It's done. And Lin replied with a smile. Done? What do you mean? Yang Ruoling was confused. I can also go to the ancient divine division. And Lin replied with excitement. Wang Xuanzhan, Yang Ruoling, what is it? And Lin was perplexed at the sight of their shocked expressions. Wang Xuanzhan was a little hesitant. You, Emperor Ziwei made an exception and allowed you to go to the ancient divine division? And Lin nodded. He also told me some other things, but that's the gist of it. The #1 backdoor entrant of Xiaoxian United University. You really do live up to your name. Yang Ruoling exclaimed. And Lin. A thought suddenly occurred to Yang Ruoling, and she asked nervously, Then who did you push down? And Lin shook his head. I didn't push anyone down. So the number of people who can enter the ancient divine division is now 31. Even Wang Xuanzhan was astonished this time, and he gave Lin a thumbs up. Impressive. That works. Yang Ruoling was in disbelief, and Lin felt like they had misunderstood something, and he immediately provided an explanation. It's not what you think, it's just that the passageway can only accommodate 31 people. There's no need to explain. Classmate and Lin, I understand. Wang Xuanzhan nodded. A light blush appeared on Yang Ruoling's face, and she seemed to have mustered up her courage as she said, After I progress to the return to Void stage, can you ask Emperor Zui to transfer me to the Heavenly Quartz Flower Palace as a palace lord or something? And Lin, what kind of person do you think I am? Do you think I'm that kind of backdoor entrant? Chapter 476. All of the cultivators who didn't receive a slot to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm were teleported away by an extremely vast power. In the end, there were only 36 people left in the palace, 5 of which were returned to Void stage and 31 of which were Soul Formation stage. Emperor Ziwei tossed out another 36 spatial teleportation talismans to everyone. The ancient Tai Chu realm will only be open for a month. Once the time is up, the spatial teleportation talismans will teleport you back to the Celestial Court. All 35 of them received a silver spatial teleportation talisman. Only Lin received a large and thick golden spatial teleportation talisman. Then he instantly became the focus of everyone's attention. And Lin, why is mine a nouveau riche? As if in response to Lin and everyone else's questions, the North Pole Emperor smiled and said, And Lin is on a special mission, so this golden spatial teleportation talisman can be activated at any time. Remember, your life is the most important. His words were still echoing in the air, and everyone else could hear the meaning behind his words. Emperor Ziwei had made no attempt to hide the fact that he had said this in front of everyone, so he was clearly giving everyone some sort of hint. Some of the cultivators who knew the inside story or had been to the ancient Tai Chu realm 500 years ago were even more astonished. They knew that due to the special nature of the ancient Tai Chu realm, only one cultivator would be able to obtain a golden teleportation talisman. This teleportation talisman was usually given to the leaders of return to Void stage cultivators. This was the first time it had been given to a Soul Formation stage cultivator, and Lin discovered that everyone was looking at him in a different light. In particular, Yang Ruoling's eyes were filled with a scorching, beseeching light. At this moment, he really wanted to shout out loud that he had obtained this teleportation talisman through his own strength, not through connections. And Lin silently put away the golden teleportation talisman. At this moment, only this teleportation talisman could give him a trace of warmth. After that, Emperor Ziwei introduced the situation in the ancient Tai Chu realm to everyone. These were all information exchanged with the blood of his predecessors. The more Lin listened, the more terrifying that place became. The strange environment, the distorted space and living beings, the chaotic laws. Not only that, but they also had to face the threat of other hostile forces on the Tai Chu continent. When they were lucky, only a few people died when they ventured into the ancient region. If they were unlucky, they would be annihilated. Regardless of whether they were returned to Void stage or Soul Formation stage cultivators, they were all dead, and they didn't even know how they died. However, there were still many people that headed to that world without any hesitation. It wasn't only for the sake of the powers they belonged to, it was also for their own sake. There were even opportunities beyond the Tao integration stage there, which was enough to drive anyone crazy. And Lin needed to collect a stardust fruit from the huge starry mountain. The huge starry mountain was an ethereal and unpredictable place, and it was said that it would shift according to the stars. As such, even the North Pole Emperor couldn't pinpoint the exact location of the stardust fruit, so Lin would have to find it himself. All Emperor Zue could do was give Lin an illusionary star robe and an illustration of what stardust fruits looked like. Time passed slowly, and Lin informed Su Xiaolan and the others via voice transmission talisman that he would be leaving for the ancient Tai Chu realm for a month. Soon it was time for the passageway to the ancient domain to open. A mighty force enveloped them, and as the space around them changed, they arrived in a dark, secret chamber. At the center of the secret chamber, there were 2 golden gates of light, one large and one small, both of which exuded a gentle light. However, a sense of oppression emanating from the 2 worlds struck everyone with a sense of asphyxiation. Return to Void Stage cultivators will enter the ancient Tai Chu realm through the large golden gate, while Soul Formation Stage cultivators will enter the ancient Tai Chu realm through the small golden gate. After entering the ancient domain, your locations will be randomly scattered. Please remember, among the 16 ancient powers that have a passageway into the ancient realm, except for the Buddhist kingdom, the Garden of Eden, the Genesis Sanctum, the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas, the North Song Mountain Realm, and the Spirit Lake Realm, all the other powers and races are your enemies. Emperor Ziwei's words jolted the hearts of everyone in the secret chamber. In the ancient domain, it was very common for hostile powers to fight for treasures, so their enemies weren't just the living beings of the ancient Tai Chu realm. There were also powerful beings from other powers. The heavens bless the human race. I wish you all a safe return. Emperor Ziwei spoke in a slow voice. A faint smile appeared on Lu Dongbin's face as he stepped through the golden gate. With him leading the way, everyone stepped into the passageway between the 2 worlds. Take care, classmate Lin. Wang Xuanzhan patted Lin's shoulder before turning to walk through the golden gate. You too, senior student Wang. Lin took a deep breath before also walking through the golden gate. Within a frozen castle in the holy glacial lands, a golden spatial gate glowed with a dazzling light. High Priestess Meng Ji was facing off against 23 snow maidens, which consisted of 3 holy palace leaders and 20 soul formation stage snow maidens. Palace leaders, you must remember that your goal is to obtain the fragment of the realm core at all costs. We have no other way out. Snow maidens who will enter the ancient divine division. Your mission is to help Shangguan reach the heavenly snow abyss, snow mountain, and awaken the soul aura of the ice matriarch. All 23 snow maidens bowed their heads in unison. As you command. Shangguan Yi's eyes were like mirrors, and they contained a world of ice and snow that was completely different from this world. Her beauty was exquisite, and her expression was cold and aloof. As she bowed her head slightly, it was as if she had become one with heaven and earth, and her aura was ethereal and ethereal. Now then, please enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. Meng Ji pointed her divine staff toward the 2 golden gates, and ripples of water rippled as an extremely gentle light emanated from the gates. A holy palace leader of the return to Void Stage was the first to enter the Gate of Light, but the gate suddenly cracked open. The terrifying power of the gate repelled the holy palace leader. PFFF. The holy palace leader threw up a mouthful of blood as she flew through the air. At the same time, the golden light began to surge violently. Crap. The passageway between the 2 worlds has become unstable and is in danger of collapsing. I'll use my divine power to stabilize the passageway between the 2 worlds. Hurry up and enter. Meng Ji's expression shifted as she pointed her divine staff toward the 2 golden gates, upon which boundless divine power surged forth. All of the snow maidens immediately flew into the golden gates without any hesitation. After all of the snow maidens had entered the golden gates began to crumble. An extremely fearsome backlash that was imbued with the power of the barrier between the two worlds swept toward Mengji. Mengji's body was struck by that terrifying force, and her slender body crashed through the castle before flying back over 50 kilometers like a streak of light. In the end, blue blood trickled down the corner of her lips. All we have to do now is wait for the passageway to open again in a month. Who would have thought that even the passageway between the two worlds would have an accident? There have been so many accidents and disasters recently. Has the holy glacial land's luck run out? Mengji heaved a forlorn sigh as she looked at the vast expanse of frozen land. On a certain inky black floating continent on the Tai Chu continent, the Darkwing Emperor clasped his hands behind his back as a group of Darkwing tribe powerful beings knelt before him. 17 people. 17 people. We have 3 return to Void Stage and 15 Soul Formation Stage cultivators. I told you to sign up, but UF** King left one person out. Aside from the monarchs who are on a mission, are all of our return to Void Stage cultivators so scared of death? The Darkwing Emperor's voice was imbued with the might of the heavens, and the winds and clouds surged as lightning crackled in the sky. All of the Darkwing tribe powerful beings bowed their heads in silence, and none of the return to Void Stage cultivators dared to step forward. Darkwing Emperor. Within the Void Spirit Realm, the golden gate between the two worlds glowed with a dazzling light beneath the twisted 5-colored sky. An invisible being spoke in a depraved voice. Kukuko, go and kill all of the living beings within. The souls of the living beings there are very delicious. 6 return to Void Stage and 40 Soul Formation Stage spirit bodies twisted their strange bodies as they walked into the Golden Gate with sinister smiles on their faces. The Dark Marshlands, the West Sea, the East Sea, the sinister spirit beast cesspool, the Western Paradise, the Holy Paradise, the Creation Realm, the North Song Mountain Realm, the Spirit Lake Realm, the Western Heavenly Dragon Forest, the Southern Heavenly Wing. Nation, the Kingdom of the 9 States, the Black Floating Continent, the Holy Glacial Lands, the Void Spirit Realm, the Demonic Realm. All of the most powerful beings from the 16 ancient powers began to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. Chapter 477. And Lin walked through the Golden Gate to discover that there was a long golden passageway with no end in sight. He continued onward through this passageway that had no sense of spatial distance. After walking for an indeterminate amount of time, he was struck by a rush of dizziness. His vision blurred, and he arrived in the middle of a vast expanse of wilderness. And Lin looked around with curiosity to discover that there were 2 suns hovering in the sky, one of which was golden while the other was red. The sky was a combination of blue and purple, creating quite a peculiar sight to behold. The ground was very flat, and there were many small mounds protruding from the ground. Extremely noisy noises reverberated around his ears, as well as a series of rumbling booms. And Lin turned to look beside him, upon which his mouth gaped open in astonishment. He saw a lot of ants on the ground. No, a lot of people. Right at this moment, a sharp pain shot through his face. Ow! Which mosquito bit me? And Lin grimaced in pain as he slapped his face with his hand. However, the mosquito didn't manage to hit him. Instead, he discovered that there was a speck of blood on his hand. He turned toward the black shadow in the distance to discover that it wasn't a mosquito, it was a man with a pair of white wings. The mosquito, wielding a blue, long sword, wore an expression of astonishment on his face. Who would have thought that you would be able to remain unscathed after being struck by one of the top 10 swordsmen of our Bronze Nation, Yinan Tian, as expected of the giant god-fiend? And Lin. The other party was speaking in the ancient man language, and Lin had already unleashed his divine sense, so he was finally able to hear what the other party was saying. Top 10 swordsmen? Divine slaying sword? Giant god-fiend? And Lin blinked in confusion as he suddenly discovered that his toes were throbbing with pain. He looked down to discover that several hundred people were slashing at his shoes with their sabers. They couldn't fly, So they had no choice but to hack at his shoes. Some of the more powerful cultivators used fire spell techniques to burn a large hole in their shoes, then fiercely chopped at their own toes. Unfortunately, their soul formation stage bodies were not something that could be broken by ordinary people, and almost all of the attacks only served to tickle him. One arrow after another flew toward Lin's white robe before being repelled. He also found that a few people were foaming at the mouth near the shoe hole, as if they were dead from the stench. Sigh, why bother? Die giant god fiend. God-killing skill, sky-flying sword. That Yi Nantian shouted. His long sword suddenly shot out a 10-centimeter long sword chi, as if it was going to pierce through the sky. His body moved along with his sword, stabbing furiously at the space between Enlin's eyebrows. The corner of Enlin's mouth twitched. He used his finger to pinch the 10 meters long sword chi, and the sword chi shattered. What? Yi Nantian widely opened his eyes in shock. Then a huge palm came toward him, covering all the light in the world. An expression of despair appeared on Yi Nantian's face. This giant god fiend was far too powerful, and he felt like his glorious career was about to come to an end. His body was pressed down by an enormous force, and he was unable to move. Just when he thought he was going to die in the next second, he discovered that death didn't come. He was just being held by the giant god fiend's hand and delivered to the giant. Am I going to be eaten? Yi Nantian fell into even more despair. He shuddered uncontrollably at the thought of his body being chewed on by the terrifying giant. This giant god fiend is indeed much more powerful than the one I killed before. But Yi Nantian, I'm not going to be humiliated like this. Yi Nantian roared as a bolt of lightning fell from the sky toward his head. He would rather die right now than become food for the giant god fiend. However, a scene that he couldn't understand appeared. The falling lightning suddenly turned around and rushed into the sky, exploding in the sky like a blue firework. Yi Nantian was in complete despair. This giant god fiend was even more terrifying than he had imagined. And Lin looked at Yi Nantian with a curious expression on his face. This Yi Nantian was only a centimeter tall, which was roughly what he would look like if he were shrunk down to 100 times his original size. Oi, let me ask you, which giant god fiend was so weak that it was killed by you? And Lin asked. Yi Nantian was clearly the most powerful being in this group, and he had just said that Enlin was much more powerful than the giant god fiend he had killed before. And Lin was quite perplexed. Which lowly being could be killed by these lowly beings? They were way too weak. Yi Nantian's face was filled with shock as he listened to the deafening voice. You, giant god fiend, can speak. The little humanoid being that was attacking Enlin's shoes and trousers also stopped its attacks upon hearing the voice before staring at Enlin with shock etched on its face. I understand a bit of the ancient man language that you're speaking. And Lin nodded. Bulsh *T. This is clearly the Tai Chu language. Yi Nantian roared. All right. You're small, so you're right. If you answer my questions honestly, I can spare your lives. And Lin smiled. Yi Nantian's body shuddered upon hearing this, and he gritted his teeth. That was a giant god fiend that was even thicker than you. However, it had long black fur all over its body, and all 4 of its limbs were on the ground. Its muscles were extremely powerful, and its fists could shatter mountains, and its feet could shake the ground. It was extremely terrifying, but it was still killed by my divine slaying sword. And Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. You're talking about AF * King Gorilla, right? It must be a gorilla, right? Have you never seen a gorilla before after living for so long? Yi Nantian looked at Enlin before continuing. You look more like a human, and you can even speak. So giant god fiends can also evolve. Evolve my A** guess. Those are 2 F* King different things. No, they should be the same thing. Aren't humans evolved from gorillas? There's nothing wrong with that statement. And Lin thought about it for a moment before replying. Yi Nantian, all the minions, but I have no vendetta against you, so why are you attacking me and stabbing me with your swords?" And Lin grumbled. There was a hole in his shoe, so he had to change his shoes again. To his surprise, the several hundred minions on the ground immediately erupted into an uproar. Many of them even let loose a torrent of abuse, and some of the more courageous ones continued to stab his shoe with their spears. Yi Nantian roared with rage. "You have no vendetta against us. How dare you say you have no vendetta against us? You killed our king, who personally led the army into battle. This kind of blood feud, how dare you say there is no enmity between us?" "I killed your king?" And Lin blinked with confusion. "Look under your foot." Yi Nantian roared with rage, and Lin raised his left foot, but there was nothing there. He thought about it for a moment before raising his right foot again. There were a few flattened golden ants on the ground. Oh, there was also a man in a golden imperial robe who had been flattened and was no longer breathing. Chapter 478. This was F** King Awkward. Who would have thought that he would accidentally trample their king to death? What was he supposed to do? Teleportation was random, so he could only land at a random location. He couldn't take the blame for this, could he? The miniature humans on the ground were still attacking his shoes in a frenzy, and there were even a dozen cannons firing relentlessly at his shoes. Even though his shoes were made of extraordinary materials, they were still charred black. And Lin's brows furrowed. I just happened to appear here and step on your king. What you're doing is going too far. To be reasonable, I'm also innocent." "You're innocent? Then who's going to bear the pain of our king's death? Who's going to take responsibility?" Yi Nantian glowered at Enlin and spat on Enlin's finger. "Enlin, what a fearless man. Should I just crush him to death?" Enlin wasn't a bloodthirsty person. Otherwise, he would be able to wipe out all of these soldiers with a single slap. He had to bear some responsibility for this. After all, their king had rushed into battle, yet he was accidentally trampled to death by a giant. The soldiers' first reaction was to kill the giant to avenge their king. And Lin killing their king was an accident, but it was also a fact. He pondered for a moment before pulling out a set of high-rank magic tools from his storage ring. Torrential pear blossom needles. There were over 1,000 miniature silver needles, all of which shone with a dazzling light under the sun. "I didn't do it on purpose, but I did accidentally trample your king to death. I'll use these torrential pear blossom needles as compensation. What do you think?" And Lin offered. "Do you think we'll forgive you just because you're giving us weapons? Our king's life is priceless. You can't exchange it for anything." Yi Nantian was roaring, but he immediately drew a sharp intake of breath when he sensed the energy fluctuations emanating from the needles. The hundreds of soldiers on the ground also stopped attacking as they stared blankly at the silver needles in the sky. "Giant god fiend, you're giving all of this to me? You are too kind. The king of the Bronze Kingdom, it doesn't matter if he dies. You didn't do it on purpose anyway. Just find another one," Yi Nantian said with a smile. And Lin, Yi Nantian was shocked in his heart. The materials of those needles, the energy waves, were actually as powerful as his divine sword. Once he obtained these 1,000 silver needles, it would be equivalent to obtaining 1,000 divine swords. What did that mean? With these swords, he would be able to build an invincible army of gods. A king was nothing. In the future, he would lead a group of soldiers to unify the world. Sure enough, the soldiers on the ground stopped attacking Enlin. They all looked at the silver needles with fervent gazes, their eyes revealing great desire. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, only strength was the greatest thing they could rely on to survive. In front of so many divine weapons, they were finally tempted, and Lin loosened his grip on Yi Nantian. Yi Nantian eagerly stowed away the 1,000 silver needles with his spatial magic tool, and Lin didn't feel any heartache. It was only a set of high-rank magic tools, which couldn't even be considered spirit tools. It was quite amusing that these people treated them as divine weapons. He really didn't know how such weak people managed to survive in this world. By the way, do you know where I can find realm essence crystals? Also, I want information on the huge starry mountain, and Lin asked with a curious expression on his face. Realm essence crystals? Huge starry mountain? Yi Nantian was perplexed, and Lin thought for a moment before explaining. Realm essence crystals are white, green, blue, red, and gold crystals that contain the essential power of the world. Yi Nantian scratched his head before pulling out a bunch of white, green, blue, red, and gold crystals from his spatial magic tool. Is this it? And Lin. These are F** King precious stones, not realm essence crystals. All right, it looked like these people didn't know anything. That made sense. They were so weak, so how could they have come into contact with something of this caliber? Then tell me everything you know about this world, and Lin continued. No problem, my pleasure. Yi Nantian was the #1 general of the Bronze Nation, so he knew even more information than their king. He was just about to speak when a white ball of light suddenly flashed. Yi Nantian's brows furrowed slightly before he activated his power, upon which an urgent voice sounded from within. General Yi Nantian, the demonic beasts of the northern Barren Mountain and the soldiers of the Water Plain Nation have suddenly joined forces to attack our capital city. We are about to fall. Hurry up and come back to reinforce us. What? Those be ** stards from the Water Plain Nation have joined forces with the demonic beasts? How dare they? I'll come back right away. Yi Nantian flared up with rage. The white ball of light suddenly disappeared, and Yi Nantian turned to Lin with a troubled expression. And Lin was very understanding. Do you want to return to the Bronze Nation? Do you want me to give you a ride? You want to come to the Bronze Nation to help us? Yi Nantian looked at Lin with a scorching light in his eyes. Helping us kill our enemies is another matter, but I can definitely take you back to the Bronze Nation. And Lin smiled. That's great. You really are different from the other giant god fiends. You're a good person. Yi Nantian was extremely excited, and Lin's chest constricted upon hearing this. Was it a trend for despicable people to give out good person cards now? He expanded the black brick before using a spell technique to transfer all of the soldiers on the ground onto the black brick before flying into the sky. All of the soldiers, including Yi Nantian, were astonished by Lin's abilities. A god fiend that could use spell techniques. How terrifying! Master God Fiend, please slow down. You're flying too fast. I can't see the road. Yi Nantian trembled as he stood at the forefront of the black brick. Never would he have thought that a heaven-rank cultivator like him would be frightened by a terrifying flying speed one day. Thus, the journey that would take the army over 10 days was completed by Lin in less than 7 to 8 minutes. He was greeted by the sight of all types of miniature houses and miniature humans. He didn't even dare to fly his black brick too low in order to avoid being blown away by the gale force winds. Soon, they arrived at the capital city of the Bronze Nation. The city walls of the capital city were extremely grand and were at least 38 centimeters tall. A massive battle was taking place at the northern city gate. Over 1,000 spear-wielding ants and over 1,000 weapon-wielding Water Plain Nation soldiers were attacking the city walls relentlessly. One of the 10 swordsmen of the Bronze Nation, Nia Hao, who was also one of the defending generals, raised an arm and yelled from atop the city wall, "Hold on! I've already informed His Majesty and General Yi Nantian of this battle. They'll definitely come to our aid within 3 days." The horns of battle were blown, and the war drums were beating. The soldiers fought with all their might to defend against the attacks from both sides. Ha ha ha. 3 days is more than enough time for us to take down this city. You didn't think that the demonic beasts would cooperate with us, did you? A general wielding a 1 centimeter long sword chortled with glee. Right at this moment, a burst of white mist descended from the sky. Blurry figures began to appear from within the white mist. The intense battle slowly began to die down, and everyone turned their eyes toward the white mist. A gust of wind blew past, and the white mist dissipated. Over 800 soldiers appeared on the battlefield, each of them wielding a silver spear that exuded terrifying energy fluctuations. The general at the forefront stood on the spot as an extremely powerful aura erupted from his body. Who dares to invade our nation? Regardless of whether they were allies or enemies, all of them drew a sharp intake of breath as they stared blankly at the army descending from the sky. Nia Hao, who was guarding the city, had a look of shock on his face. Hasn't it only been 15 minutes? How did the army suddenly arrive here? What the F*** CK? Yi Nantian. The general of the Water Plain Nation exclaimed with incredulity. Yi Nantian held his sword horizontally in front of him as he replied in a cold voice, "That's me!" Chapter 479. Nia Hao stared at Yi Nantian with a dumbstruck expression. He rubbed his eyes to find that it was still the same familiar figure, except that it seemed to have become even more imposing. The River Plain Nation general quickly composed himself and raised his long sword high into the air as he roared, "Quick! Yi Nantian's army has been separated from the soldiers defending the city. This is the perfect opportunity to annihilate them. Let's charge over and stop them from getting onto the city wall." All of the soldiers and mutant beasts came to their senses and roared as they pounced toward this army. Nia Hao also came to his senses and yelled, "Quick! Cover the soldiers outside the city and get them to retreat into the city." There were over 1,000 enemy soldiers and over 1,000 ferocious mutant beasts outside the city. There was a massive disparity between the 800 soldiers led by Yi Nantian and them, so they had to retreat into the city first. However, Yi Nantian merely chuckled coldly as he raised his long sword high into the air. "This is the first battle that will make our southern heavenly army famous. Follow me and charge! Charge!" The 800 soldiers were fearless as they charged toward the southern heavenly army with the torrential pear blossom spears in their hands. The River Plain Nation general faltered slightly upon seeing this before a look of elation appeared on his face as he materialized a pair of wings of air and pounced toward Yi Nantian. "Yi Nantian, you're courting death. Just wait for those few hundred soldiers to be trampled to death by my army. Yi Nantian, what are you doing? Hurry up and retreat. As long as we hold the city, we can slowly plan our counterattack." Nia Hao yelled. A faint smile appeared on Yi Nantian's face. Now is the time to retaliate. They're done for. The River Plain Nation army clashed with the Southern Heavenly Army, but no intense clashes ensued. The River Plain Nation army's formation was torn apart like tofu by the Southern Heavenly Army. The torrential pear blossom spears of the Southern Heavenly Army were imbued with white vital energy, and they were like indestructible divine weapons that sliced the enemy soldiers in half before they even had a chance to touch the tip of the spears. The River Plain Nation's soldiers were all dumbstruck. Their weapons, armor, and shields were all torn apart, like tofu in the face of the silver spears. The ferocious ant beasts, ladybug beasts, and caterpillar beasts were also torn apart by the terrifying spear without any resistance. The beast armor they were most proud of couldn't even withstand a single blow from the torrential pear blossom spear. The eyes of the River Plain Nation general, who was battling Yi Nantian, contracted as an incredulous expression appeared on his face. "Are those spears all divine tools?" "Ha ha ha, that's right. Die, you old dog." Yi Nantian laughed loudly. His sword was like a dragon, slashing toward Sitalang. What kind of opportunity did Yi Nantian get? Nia Hao murmured. On the ground below, the Southern Sky soldiers cut down the River Plain Nation soldiers and mutant beasts like they were chopping melons and vegetables. They were like an invincible army, sweeping through all obstacles with unstoppable force. The River Plain Nation soldiers and mutant beasts were all given a fright. They had only been fighting for a short while, but blood was already flowing all over the ground. Furthermore, it was all their blood, and the Southern Sky soldiers had suffered very few casualties. Just as the battle was over, dark clouds suddenly appeared in the sky along with the rumbling of thunder. A black praying mantis rushed out from the dark clouds with a man in a white robe in its scythe-like hands. The number one powerful being of the Bronze Nation, Wei Long, is dead. Are you still not going to surrender? The mantis voice spread throughout the entire battlefield, and countless soldiers looked up into the sky. Yi Nantian and Nya Hao's expressions shifted drastically as they stared at the man in the mantis hands in shock. How could this be? Wei Long was defeated. He's the only divine rank being in our nation. Nya Hao murmured, "It's over." Who would have thought that there would be a divine rank being among the mutant beasts? And they even managed to kill Wei Long. Yi Nanchan's face was filled with grief and indignation. They were divided into 4 ranks: human, earth, heaven, and divine. The power of a divine rank being was enough to determine the outcome of a battle involving thousands of soldiers. If Yi Nantian was given a few more years, he would also have a chance to become a divine rank being, but now, cuckoo! If you won't surrender, then I'll eat all of you. The black mantis cackled menacingly before swallowing Wei Long into its stomach, right in front of all the soldiers. All of the Bronze Nation's soldiers gritted their teeth as flames of rage burned in their eyes. All of the River Plain Nation's soldiers were elated. They could see a glimmer of hope for victory. Hee, I didn't think that there would be so many good weapons here. I'll be taking them. The black mantis turned its gaze toward the Southern Heavenly Army soldiers on the ground, and its eyes glowed with greed. Boom! An extremely powerful aura erupted from the black mantis, and it transformed into a black tornado that swept toward the army of over 800 soldiers before slaughtering the Southern Heavenly Army soldiers on the ground. Retreat! Yi Nantian roared. Right at this moment, a faint exclamation of surprise suddenly sounded in the sky. A gargantuan black brick broke through the clouds. The black brick was over 20 feet wide, and it obscured the entire sky. All of the soldiers on the battlefield felt as if the entire sky had darkened. Whoosh! The black brick disappeared, and a gargantuan figure landed on the ground, causing the entire ground to tremor violently. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at the gargantuan figure. Some of the soldiers dropped their weapons in fright as they stared blankly at the gargantuan figure. Giant god fiend? And Lin looked up at the black mantis in the sky with a smile on his face. I'm interested in your aura. Come here, let's have a good chat. Everyone was shocked to hear this. This giant god fiend could F** king talk. The black mantis' eyes narrowed as it swung its scythe-like claws toward Lin. Chat my A** guess. It's not like I've never killed a giant god fiend before. Die. Terrifying energy burst forth from the black praying mantis's claws as it spoke. Black mist gathered around its claws, forming blade projections that extended for several meters like black swords. They tore through the air and slashed toward Lin's neck with a sharp screech. So fast! Nya Hao and Yi Nanchan's hearts jolted in unison. Stop messing around. And Lin chuckled before unleashing a palm toward the black mantis. The palm projection was as fast as lightning and imbued with a boundless aura. Before the palm had even come into contact with the mantis, the black blade projection was already torn apart by the devastating palm projection before crashing into the mantis body. Ah, PFFF! The black mantis let loose a wail of anguish before throwing up a mouthful of blood as it flew through the air. All of the Bronze Nation and River Plain Nation soldiers were dumbstruck as they stared at the mantis that had been sent flying. A mighty divine, rank powerful being was unable to withstand a single palm from the giant god fiend. This giant god fiend was countless times more terrifying than the giant god fiends they had encountered in the past. Retreat! The River Plain Nation general roared before fleeing into the distance. All of the other soldiers and mutant beasts also lost all of their battle intent at the sight of the giant god-fiend as they fled for their lives. However, what was strange to them was that Yi Nanshan's soldiers had no intention of running away at all. Were they not afraid of this giant god-fiend? Just as they were thinking this, and Lin had already turned toward the mutant beasts before opening his mouth and spitting out a mouthful of saliva. The mouthful of saliva grew larger and larger before transforming into a ferocious wave that instantly engulfed the hundreds of mutant beasts before erupting with terrifying energy, tearing their bodies apart. All of the soldiers drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this. A mouthful of saliva could engulf an entire army? What kind of power was this? The River Plain Nation's soldiers' legs had turned to jelly, but they still persevered and continued to flee into the distance. The divine rank powerful being, the black praying mantis, crawled up from the ground with great difficulty, and it fled into the distance with its battered body in fear at the sight of Lin's display of might. And Lin chuckled coldly at the sight of the fleeing mantis before pulling out a massive saber that was 40 meters in length. Everyone looked up at the massive saber that seemed as if it were going to pierce through the heavens with shock. Yi Nantian murmured to himself, "My God, a saber can become this big!" "Little mantis, I can give you a 39-meter head start, but when the time comes, don't blame me for not holding back." A sinister smile appeared on Lin's face. The black mantis looked behind it, and it almost pissed its pants at the sight of the massive saber glowing with a frosty light. It immediately stopped in its tracks before falling to its knees and begging in a loud voice, "Please spare me, Master Godfiend. You can talk about anything you want, but please don't kill me." A satisfied smile appeared on Lin's face as he sheathed his 40-meter saber. That's a good boy. Chapter 480. And Lin looked at the black praying mantis. "I can sense realm essence, crystal, fluctuations from your energy. Tell me, where are they?" The energy fluctuations from realm essence crystals were very special. They had the ability to make the space around them more viscous. And Lin had already memorized this energy fluctuation from the realm essence crystals that Emperor Ziwei had displayed to him. He could now sense a similar energy fluctuation from the black praying mantis's body. But this energy fluctuation was extremely faint, as if it were attached to his body. Realm essence crystals? What's that? The black praying mantis was confused. "Where did you get your power from?" And Lin asked, "How else? I cultivated it with my own abilities." The black praying mantis felt like it had been insulted. And Lin, "There's some kind of special energy, fluctuation, coming from your body. Did you come into contact with something that can enhance your power?" "Something that can enhance my power." The black praying mantis pondered for a moment before his body shuddered. "Are you talking about the baptism of the divine lake?" "What's the baptism of the divine lake?" And Lin asked. "It's the most renowned lake on our continent. Within the Central Nation's imperial palace, every divine rank cultivator has a chance to enter the divine lake to be baptized. After the baptism, the divine rank cultivator's power will be enhanced to a certain extent," the black praying mantis explained. And Lin nodded. Perhaps the energy contained within the divine lake was the energy that had escaped from the realm essence crystals. "Lead the way. I want to take a look at the divine lake." And Lin smiled. The black praying mantis stared at Lin with shock and horror on his face. "You can't do that. The central city doesn't allow giant god-fiends to enter. If you show yourself, they'll view you as an enemy and kill you on the spot." And Lin stepped forward and instantly appeared before the black praying mantis. He picked it up with a cold expression. "Kill me? That'll depend on whether they have the ability to do so. Cut the crap and lead the way, or I'll squash you to death." The black praying mantis was given a fright by Lin's monstrous speed. How could such a massive body possess such terrifying speed? With such power and speed, he might really be able to escape from the hands of that Holy Spirit. It thought about it and nodded. All right, I'll take you there, but you have to promise to let me go once we reach the deity's lake. And Lin sneered, That's not up to you. You don't have the qualifications to negotiate with me now. If you want to live, hurry up and lead the way. The Black Praying Mantis. Farewell, God Fiend and Lin. Yi Nantian bowed his head with a respectful expression. We respectfully send off Enlin, God Fiend. Several hundred southern sky soldiers saluted simultaneously, respectfully sending off Enlin's departure. Enlin had turned the tide and defeated the god-level mantis, turning the situation around and saving their country. This kindness was enough for them to do such a thing. And Lin nodded to Yi Nantian and the others with a smile. Only then did he soar into the sky with the black praying mantis and disappear into the clouds. Nya Hao watched the southern sky soldiers' actions and the departing Enlin, and a trace of realization dawned on him. The giant god-fiend was probably the reason why they were able to arrive at this battlefield so quickly and obtain a divine tool each. Nya Hao couldn't help but ask as he watched Yi Nantian return to the city wall. Generally, do you guys know that giant god-fiend? Yi Nantian nodded. You can say that out of a fight we get to know each other. Actually, Enlin is very intelligent and isn't the kind of monster that kills for no reason. He wouldn't hurt us humans for no reason. Out of a fight we get to know each other? How did you get to know each other? Nya Hao asked curiously. He accidentally stomped our king to death, and then we got into a fight. Yi Nantian said with a solemn expression. Nya Hao's eyes and mouth widened in shock. He stomped our king to death? He had a feeling that something was missing, but he wasn't sure what it was. Only now did he realize that the King was gone. No, the king died. Even the king was stomped to death. You call that out of a fight we get to know each other. Nya Hao's lips twitched. If he wanted to, he could have killed all of us with one palm. However, in the end, he saved the Bronze Nation and gave us 1,000 divine tools. Who doesn't make mistakes? He's apologized so sincerely, so we should forgive him. Yi Nantian said. Nya Hao felt like this was a reasonable argument. Then we have to choose a new king, Yi Nantian nodded. Let's choose the second prince. He looks like a good candidate. Nya Hao. It looks like the second prince is the only one left, right? Yi Nantian. I hope the second prince can hold on. I sure hope so. Nya Hao looked up into the sky. In the sky above, Enlin was flying toward the central city under the guidance of the Black Praying Mantis. According to the Black Praying Mantis knowledge, the continent they were on was called the Tai Chu continent. The border of the Tai Chu continent was a boundless realm of extreme frost. Any living being that ventured into this realm of extreme frost would be frozen to death. The central city was located at the center of this continent and was definitely a neutral power. To humans, mutant beasts, and all other races, the central city was the most sacred and inviolable place. It was said that there were holy rank, powerful beings who had transcended the divine rank, guarding the central city and maintaining the stability of the entire continent at the same time. There were many countries on this continent, including several hundred countries like the Bronze Nation. There were also the 10 great empires, each of which had a population of over 10 million and several divine rank powerful beings. From this, one could see how powerful the central city was to be able to maintain a transcendent position among so many forces. And Lin unleashed a concealment spell technique on himself and the Black Praying Mantis before surveying this strange world as they flew toward the central city. There were very few large animals in this world, but there were a lot of mutant beasts that were the size of insects. The surrounding environment was also like a miniature version of this world, with all kinds of small and adorable creatures. There were mountains that looked like mounds of dirt, lakes that looked like puddles, rivers that looked like creeks. After flying for an hour, they finally arrived at the central city. The central city was a vast expanse of pure white buildings that stretched as far as the eye could see. From Enlin's perspective, the central city was quite spectacular. A series of white towers rose into the sky, and many of them were even taller than he was. The holy tower at the very center was over 100 meters tall. That was the true grand construction project. Within the central city, all races coexisted in harmony, and there were clear rules that all races were not allowed to fight within the city. If a battle were to break out, law enforcement would appear to apprehend the combatants on the spot. And Lin used a concealment spell technique to evade the detection of the city guards, and he flew directly toward the Divine Lake. And Lin took a deep breath as soon as he arrived above the Divine Lake. The Divine Lake was like a golden mirror, and it glowed with a majestic light under the light of the sun. Rich essential energy fluctuations proliferated outward, creating an exhilarating sight to behold. However, all of that was secondary. The most important thing was that there were 4 tall towers standing in 4 different directions around the Divine Lake. The 4 towers shimmered with golden light, and their interiors were solid and solid. The exterior of the 4 towers was a series of independent rooms, and Lin's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Those 4 towers weren't just towers. They were F*King Realm Essence crystals, and they were Golden Realm Essence crystals of the highest grade. Holy F*CK, using Realm Essence crystals to construct towers? What a F*King waste! In order to ensure that these precious items could be used to their full potential, and Lin made a decision in his heart. These 4 Realm Essence crystals were all his. They had to be his. Impudent godfiends! How dare you barge into the Divine Lake? Die! Right at this moment, a coarse, enraged roar sounded. Chapter 481. And Lin turned toward the source of the voice with a surprised expression to find a man glaring at him with an enraged expression. The man had golden hair, blue eyes, and a pair of pointy ears. His figure was the same as a miniature human, but he had a pair of semi-transparent wings that exuded golden light on his back. The wings were extremely thin, and every time they flapped, specks of golden light would appear in the air. And Lin immediately identified the man's species after seeing his appearance. He was an elf. The elf that had almost gone extinct on the Tai Chu continent and only existed in the Encyclopedia of Various Species. And Lin's interest was piqued. This was a living elf. His concealment technique was very simple, but it was still a spell technique unleashed by a soul formation stage mighty figure, so it wasn't something that just anyone could see through. However, this male elf was able to immediately see through his spell technique, which indicated that he was most likely quite powerful. The black praying mantis had also discovered the man flying in the air, and its body trembled with shock and horror. It's over. These energy fluctuations. He's a holy, rank, powerful being. And Lin didn't even get a chance to say anything before the male elf raised his hands toward the sky and yelled, "Divine lightning of the heavens, please help me destroy this evil god-fiend." The spiritual energy of heaven and earth instantly surged violently. Dark clouds suddenly gathered in the sky within a radius of over 1,000 feet as bolts of lightning danced through the air like silver snakes. Extremely powerful lightning energy was converging toward the black praying mantis with extremely fearsome might. Tears welled up in the black praying mantis' eyes as it stared at the lightning clouds within a radius of over 1,000 feet. It was struck by how minuscule it was. "It's over. I'm going to be blasted to smithereens." The black praying mantis lamented. Golden light suddenly erupted from the male elf's eyes as he pointed a finger at Lin. "Divine lightning, blast him to death." Boom, boom, boom. Dark clouds surged in the sky as lightning crackled. However, no lightning fell. The male elf blinked in confusion as he felt like his posture was a little off. So he pointed a finger at Lin again and unleashed another spell technique before stomping a foot into the air. "Divine lightning, blast this god-fiend to death." The dark clouds and lightning then began to dissipate, and the sun began to shine brightly. The male elf, how awkward. How could it be like this? Right at this moment, and Lin slowly said, "I'm not some god-fiend. I'm a giant mutated human. I'm here to discuss something with you guys. Bah. Giant humans? Do you think I'm an idiot? The male elf glared at Enlil. Two white swords of light suddenly condensed in his hands, and he pounced towards Enlil. The male elf's speed instantly broke through the speed of sound, stirring up a sonic boom behind him. The two white swords of light continued to extend, and in the end, they actually reached a length of more than 10 meters, furiously slashing towards Enlil. Enlil didn't dodge. He condensed his chi into a sword and slashed at the male elf. The male elf's white light sword collided with Enlil's energy sword, setting off gusts of wind. Then the white light sword shone brightly and directly tore Enlil's energy sword apart. Die, evil fiend god! A golden light erupted from the male elf's eyes, and an expression of elation appeared on his face. The two white swords were imbued with terrifying power as they slashed toward Enlil's neck without any hesitation. Enlil's heart jolted with shock. This male elf's attack was comparable to that of a soul formation stage cultivator. In the blink of an eye, Enlil extended a single finger. Spatial congealing. Crack. The space around the male elf suddenly congealed as an extremely powerful sealing force locked him in place. This was the spatial congealing inheritance that Enlil had obtained from the Purple Star ruins. It could temporarily unleash the power to congeal all things. The male elf's eyes widened in shock as he stared at Enlil. Never would he have thought that the giant god-fiend would be able to wield such terrifying power. Enlil didn't waste any words with him. He slapped the elf into the ground with all his might. Boom! The male elf's body crashed into the ground like a cannonball, creating a massive crater with a radius of over 10 meters. The male elf threw up a mouthful of blood as he lay limply in the crater. He had clearly been severely wounded by Enlil's slap. Enlil very rarely engaged in close-quarters combat, but that didn't mean that he wasn't good at it. After all, he was a soul formation, intermediate stage, powerful being who had cultivated the Earth Lotus Supreme skill. In a situation where he was completely defenseless, his full force attack could definitely cripple a soul formation stage cultivator. The black praying mantis stared at the scenes unfolding before his eyes with incredulity. Before he even had a chance to heave a sigh of relief, another enraged roar sounded from the distance. Mandel, I'm here to help you. An extremely handsome male elf charged toward Enlil with flames revolving around his hands. Run, Harris. You're no match for him. Mandel yelled in a panicked voice as he lay in the crater. Harris didn't have time to think as he charged toward Enlil. He aimed his flame-wreathed hands at Enlil, and a huge flaming dragon over 1,000 feet in length instantly materialized in the air before pouncing toward Enlil. My God, it's another holy rank, powerful being. Just how many powerful beings are hidden in the central city? The black, praying mantis stared at the flaming dragon with shock and horror. Enlil looked at the flaming dragon with a resigned expression. Can't you just talk nicely? I'm not here to fight. I'm here to make a deal. He had already run out of patience. He pulled out his evil-slaying sword from his storage ring before slashing it toward the flaming dragon. A black sword projection made heaven and earth darken as the terrifying sword intent instantly sliced the flaming dragon in half. Blue lightning revolved around his fingertips as he pointed toward Harris in the distance. Lightning manipulation technique. Lightning amplification technique. Boom! Blue lightning erupted from the void before striking Harris at an extremely terrifying speed, charring his entire body black and causing his eyes to roll into the back of his head. Harris opened his mouth, and wisps of white smoke escaped from it as his body began to plummet toward the ground. Charge! Avenge His Holy Majesty! Due to the intense battle, the guardians of the central city had already arrived near the Divine Lake, and all of them charged toward Enlil. There were elves, humans, as well as powerful beings from unknown tribes and mutant beasts. Enlil's eyes turned a pure golden color as he looked at the hundreds of powerful beings charging toward him. A paramount divine might transformed into a semi-transparent golden ripple that proliferated outward. Divine might technique. All of the powerful beings within a radius of several thousand feet were struck by this golden ripple, and their eyes all rolled into the back of their heads as they fell unconscious. All of the powerful beings in the sky frothed at the mouth like mosquitoes with their wings snapped, temporarily losing the ability to fight. So powerful, His Holy Majesty and Lin, you are definitely the king of all giant god-fiends. The black praying mantis couldn't help but exclaim upon seeing this. He could sense that there were at least 10 divine rank powerful beings and over 100 heaven rank powerful beings among the oncoming powerful beings, but none of them were able to withstand a single glare from the god-fiend. This god-fiend's power had far exceeded the scope of his understanding. This wasn't a giant god-fiend that only knew how to use brute force and black fur. This was a giant god-fiend king that had evolved to an even higher level. Even 2 holy rank powerful beings had been defeated by Enlin, so who else could be a match for him? The entire central city was being suppressed by him alone. This was truly a one-man army. The black praying mantis felt like Enlin would definitely be able to rule over this world. He felt like he should put on a good performance to show his loyalty, then find an opportunity to follow Enlin and become the ruler of an entire world with this in mind. The black praying mantis was immediately filled with battle intent. It flew towards one of the saints who had fallen to the ground and waved its sharp scythe, sneering, "Why aren't you going to surrender now? Enlin is a reasonable man. As long as you cooperate, he won't make things difficult for you. Otherwise, I'm going to cut off your head with my bare hands." It felt so good to be able to speak to a holy rank, powerful being like this. Whoosh! An arrow of light flew through the air before instantly puncturing the black, praying mantis body. It was extremely fast, so fast that the black praying mantis had no time to react. The black praying mantis stared blankly at the body that had just appeared in the hole, then at Mandel and Harris in the distance. Both of them were lying on the ground like dead fish without any movement, so it was clear that they weren't the ones who had done this. Then who did this? The black praying mantis didn't know. Am I going to die just like this? I haven't even followed in Lin's footsteps to rule over this world yet, and I'm going to die just like this. The black praying mantis body began to be pulverized by a special force, and the wound on its body continued to expand. Before it completely fell into the darkness of death, it heard a crisp and pleasant voice. "Those who invade my central city shall die." Chapter 482. The black praying mantis body began to disintegrate before disappearing into specks of light, and Lin's body tensed up upon seeing this, and he turned toward a certain direction in the distance with rapt attention. 1.5 kilometers away, a female fairy with golden hair and blue eyes in a white dress flew toward Enlin at a terrifying speed. Her semi-transparent golden wings were fully extended, and she held a golden long sword in her hand. This female fairy's aura was extremely powerful. Even though her cultivation base was similar to that of the 2 holy rank powerful beings, her aura was far superior to that of the 2 holy rank powerful beings. If one had to describe it, it would be like the difference between a pond and the ocean. Mandel and Harris's dispirited expressions were reinvigorated by the sight of the female fairy. "It's the Holy Maiden. She's back. We're saved." At the same time, all of the powerful beings who had been struck by the divine might technique also turned toward the sky with undisguisable reverence and fanaticism on their faces. "It's the Holy Maiden. The Holy Maiden has returned from slaying the demonic dragon. The Holy Maiden is extremely powerful. No matter how powerful the giant god-fiend is, it will definitely die." And Lin immediately said at the sight of the approaching female fairy, "Hold on, I'm not here to fight. Let's make a deal. A giant god-fiend that can speak." The female fairy faltered slightly before her expression became even more grave. "It looks so similar to a human. Is it a mutated giant god-fiend? We can't allow such a being to exist in this world. And Lin, the female fairy's killing intent surged even more, and the golden longsword in her hand continued to expand and elongate. In the end, it extended for over a kilometer before piercing through the clouds like a sharp sword piercing through the heavens. It's here. That's the Holy Maiden's dragon-slaying holy sword. The holy sword is imbued with extremely fearsome holy power and can reduce several dozen mountains to dust with a single strike. The powerful beings on the ground below exclaimed. The golden long sword tore through the air with extremely fearsome power before crashing down toward Lin. And Lin let loose an enraged roar as he unleashed his 6 strikes of the war god to meet the golden longsword head-on, unleashing an inky black sword projection. Boom! The 2 fearsome powers collided, and heaven and earth trembled as the earth cracked open. And Lin was sent flying by a terrifying force, and the female fairy was also sent flying. As she retreated, there was a look of shock on her face. A breath of time later, the 2 of them collided again. Boom, boom, boom. The terrifying energy rippled out in all directions, shattering the ground in a radius of several hundred meters. The experts nearby couldn't bear the pressure and spat out blood. And Lin and the female elf fought from the ground to the sky. Every time they collided, it was like the roar of heavenly thunder in the void. It had been a long time since Lin had used his sword techniques to his heart's content. Now that he was in a battle that he hadn't fought for a long time, every cell in his body seemed to have come alive, and the more he fought, the more energetic he became. He didn't think that the petite female fairy would be able to unleash power comparable to that of a soul formation pinnacle stage cultivator. With the strength of this female elf, in this place full of villains, she was an invincible existence. However, she didn't have any ambitions. Instead, she kept a low profile and only wanted to build a central city. This made Lin even more curious. Thousand light shadows. The female elf's golden, long sword suddenly transformed into over a meter in length swords of light that hung in the sky before crashing down like a torrential downpour. And Lin spread open his wings of wind, and he evaded the countless sword projections with his extremely fast movement techniques. In the end, his long sword was enshrouded in white winds, and he unleashed a wind sword technique, instantly appearing in front of the female elf before slashing a lethal white trajectory through the air. The female elf was even faster than he had anticipated. Her golden wings of light spread open, and her body flashed through the air for a short distance, similar to the power of spatial manipulation. She retreated over 10 meters, thereby evading Lin's lethal attack. Ha ha ha. Again. And Lin chuckled as he pounced toward the female elf again. The female elf's intricate features paled slightly, but she still gritted her teeth as she charged toward Lin. The battle between the 2 of them was earth-shattering, and the shock waves from their clash could even be felt as far as 5 kilometers away. The entire central city was swept up by gale-force winds, and everyone stared up at the relentless explosions of energy in the sky with trepidation in their eyes. Only now did they realize just how powerful the Holy Maiden was, as well as just how terrifying the giant god-fiend she was battling was. Evil giant god-fiend, I'm going to end your life with this attack. The Holy Maiden slit open her pristine white wrist, and golden blood drifted through the air. I offer my blood as a sacrifice to the Holy Sword. The golden blood began to fuse into the Holy Sword as she let loose a light cry. Hey, I'm really only here to make a deal, not to put my life on the line. Did you see which living being I killed? No, I didn't kill a single one. Have you ever seen a god-fiend as gentle as I am? And Lin hurriedly offered an explanation at the sight of the Holy Maiden's determined expression. The Holy Maiden faltered slightly, and a thoughtful expression appeared on her face. Right at this moment, her green eyes suddenly turned inky black, and black smoke erupted from her petite body. Ah! The Holy Maiden let loose a wail of anguish as she plummeted from the sky. the golden holy sword lost its source of energy, and it also began to plummet toward the ground, tearing a fissure over 1,000 feet in length into the ground. And Lin was completely perplexed. What was going on now? He quickly made his way over to the Holy Maiden before she fell to the ground. "Hey, what's wrong?" And Lin poked the Holy Maiden's little head. "Bastard, hurry, let go of me." The Holy Maiden's body trembled slightly in Lin's hand, and her eyes flickered between green and black. Black smoke emanated from her snowy white skin, materializing into a series of little skulls. And Lin's brows furrowed. This aura, it feels very similar to the aura of a sinister devil. It's also chaotic and contains boundless negative emotions that can cause living beings to fall. However, this isn't the aura of a sinister devil, as the aura of a sinister devil has a special characteristic, which is that it can be rejected by the world. What are you saying? This is the curse of the demonic dragon before it died. The Holy Maiden furrowed her brows and gritted her teeth as she spoke with difficulty. She could sense that Lin really didn't seem to harbor any enmity toward her, so she had no choice but to explain the source of this power to Lin. And Lin was enlightened upon hearing this. Some of the bystanders had said that the Holy Maiden had returned from slaying the demonic dragon, so it looked like the Holy Maiden had also been wounded, and Lin was quite experienced in dealing with this type of power that emanated black smoke. This type of power was extremely susceptible to the power of pure yang. This was evident from the fact that Xiao Hong had used a golden light to expel the power of a sinister devil for him. He thought about it for a moment before 4 different balls of flames suddenly appeared in his hand. After being refined by the Holy Vermilion Flame and the Holy Vermilion Bird bloodline, the 4 divine flames were already at the highest level of divine flames. He felt like his divine flames would have no issues dealing with this type of power of darkness. "Go on, choose one of the flames." And Lin smiled. "What?" The Holy Maiden curled up into a ball with confusion on her face. Demonic Star Flame, Great Holy Flame, Setting Moon Flame, and Heavenly Void Flame. "I want to use one of these 4 divine flames to incinerate you. Pick one." "I think the Great Holy Flame might be more effective." And Lin replied, "Holy Maiden, are you asking me to choose a method of cremation?" Tears welled up in the Holy Maiden's eyes. "Have you become stupid from the curse? I'm asking you to choose a flame to expel the curse for you." And Lin pursed his lips. The Holy Maiden's chest constricted upon hearing this, and she flared up with rage. "You're asking a patient to choose a method of treatment at a time like this? Don't you know that time is of the essence? Don't you know that the patient only needs to listen to the doctor? Who's the stupid one here?" And Lin thought differently, and he explained patiently, "Because I'm a doctor who advocates democracy and respect for patients." "Holy Maiden, then I'll choose this ball of purple flames." The Holy Maiden pointed at the demonic star flame as black blood trickled down the corner of her lips. She felt that the ball of purple flames was imbued with starlight, and it was extremely romantic and beautiful. Even if she were to be cremated by this beautiful ball of flames, it would still be a beautiful and tragic death. And Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. Who was the one who just said that the patient only needed to listen to the doctor? Had the Holy Maiden fed his great holy flame to the dogs? Time was of the essence, and he was extremely confident in his divine flames. Any one of the 4 divine flames was extremely bad *SS. So he didn't refuse the Holy Maiden's request and immediately began to activate the demonic star flame. He pointed a thick finger toward the Holy Maiden's abdomen, and the demonic star flame transformed into pure yang energy that flowed into the Holy Maiden's abdomen. He did his best to control his power so that the flame energy wouldn't harm the Holy Maiden. The black energy began to sizzle as it made contact with the divine flame, and it began to flee. The Holy Maiden moaned with a blush on her face, and her breathing accelerated. It was working, and Lin's eyes lit up, and he immediately increased his power. Chapter 483. Be gentle. The holy fairy maiden moaned as she crossed her arms over her chest and closed her eyes, as if she was enduring excruciating pain. Endure it. The power of the curse is very tenacious. I have to increase the intensity of the attack. And Lin could sense that the detestable power was trying to escape from the holy fairy maiden's body with all its might. There was even a type of spiritual interference power that was trying to attach itself to her consciousness. You beast, let go of the holy fairy maiden. Mandel and Harris didn't hear the conversation between Lin and the holy fairy maiden, but they could see the pained expression on the holy fairy maiden's face. They immediately thought that Lin was going to perform some kind of evil ritual, and they flew toward Lin with all their might. Don't bother me. A silver light flashed from Lin's storage ring, and the two Gundams appeared between heaven and earth. Mandel and Harris's breathing faltered at the sight of the massive silver mechanical puppet that had suddenly appeared. Immediately afterward, they were greeted by the sight of a massive palm hurtling through the air toward them. Slap! Slap! The two holy rank powerful beings were struck by the sudden attack, and they plummeted to the ground like cannonballs. And Lin's divine flame had already reached a critical juncture in eliminating the curse. He had already forced the power of the curse into a corner of the holy fairy maiden's body. If he were to eliminate the curse from the inside, it was very likely that he would inflict severe damage to her body, so it was best to force it out of her body and then eliminate it. Little fairy, open your mouth. And Lin suddenly spoke. The holy fairy maiden opened her bright eyes upon hearing this. Her pupils had already become a clear green color again, clearly indicating that the divine flame was very effective. Open your mouth. I'm going to expel the curse from your mouth. And Lin commanded again. A blush appeared on the holy fairy maiden's delicate little face, and she opened her mouth in embarrassment, revealing her little pink tongue beneath her sparkling white teeth. And Lin focused his gaze, and the divine flame on his fingertip surged toward the holy fairy maiden from all directions, quickly forcing the curse toward the holy fairy maiden's mouth. Perhaps it was due to the curse's survival instincts, but it began to escape from the holy fairy maiden's mouth. A pitch-black smoke salamander appeared in the void, and the surrounding temperature plummeted. It was in urgent need of a host, so when it saw Lin, it roared and pounced on Lin. You overestimate yourself. And Lin waved a hand, and the 4 divine fires turned into a terrifying incinerator that instantly extinguished the curse origin. The holy fairy maiden crawled up from Lin's palm. She was sweating profusely, but there was a grateful expression on her face as she extended a slight bow. Thank you for expelling my curse. You really are different from the other giant god fiends. I'm not a giant god fiend. And Lin said discontentedly, I admit that I'm here to obtain something, but I'm also here with the purpose of making a deal. Yes, I'm very sincere. The 2 Gundams returned to Lin's storage ring after pummeling Mandel and Hariel into a pulp. Look, aside from those 2 underlings of yours, everyone else is completely unscathed. And Lin pointed at the people on the ground. The holy fairy maiden had clearly noticed this as well. She didn't know why Lin was fighting the male elf, but she knew that he was trying to minimize the number of casualties. With this in mind, an awkward and apologetic expression appeared on her face. Mr. Giant, I was too rash and I accidentally killed the black praying mantis in a fit of rage. I'll make sure to compensate you for this. Black praying mantis? And Lin faltered slightly before a grief-stricken expression appeared on his face. Sigh. The black praying mantis was my brother for many years. Before coming here, I promised him that I would take him to see the world with me. Who would have thought that he would die so soon? It's not your fault. After all, we trespassed on the divine lake first. It's all my fault for not protecting him. Tears welled up in Lin's eyes as he looked up into the sky, as if he didn't want to shed tears. The holy fairy maiden's mouth gaped open, but she didn't know what to say. This was the first time she had seen the giant god fiend display such an emotional side. She had thought that the black praying mantis was only a subordinate or servant of the giant. But who would have thought that he was his brother? That meant that she had killed the giant's brother with her own 2 hands. Even so, the giant still said that he didn't blame her and chose to save her. I did something unforgivable. What should I do? The Holy Fairy Maiden pursed her lips and murmured to herself. Right at this moment, Lin brought out a 2nd-grade spirit pill from his storage ring, the Spirit with Spring Pill. Here, this spirit pill has an extremely strong healing effect on injuries, and it can also nourish the spirit. It's perfect for your body that's been severely injured by the outbreak of the curse. Hurry up and eat it, he said with a smile as he handed the wood spring spirit pill to the Holy Fairy Maiden. The fairy saintess stretched out her slender arms and hugged the pill that was half the size of her body. Tears welled up in her emerald eyes as she said, I killed your brother, so why are you still giving me this pill? She looked at the smiling Lin, and she was suddenly struck by the feeling that this giant was so gentle and beautiful, just like the dazzling and mesmerizing sunlight on a spring day. She could even detect the powerful life force imbued within the pill. This was definitely a divine pill. But now, the giant was giving it to her to heal her injuries. That's a different matter altogether. I was at fault for trespassing on the divine lake, so I can understand your reaction. You should heal your injuries first, then we can discuss our deal, and Lin said with a gentle expression. The Holy Fairy Maiden nodded with excitement as she opened her mouth to chew on the spirit pill, creating an extremely adorable sight. By the way, little fairy, what's your name? And Lin suddenly asked, My name is Tina, and you? The Holy Fairy Maiden asked as she chewed on the spirit pill. My name is Lin. Also, I'm really not a giant god fiend. I'm just a slightly larger human. And Lin smiled. All right, Giant and Lin. Tina nodded like a little chick pecking at rice. All of the powerful beings from all over the central city stood rooted to the spot with confusion on their faces at the sight of the Holy Fairy chatting happily with the giant god fiend. What was going on? Could it be that they had come in the wrong way? Wasn't there an earth-shattering battle taking place just a moment ago? Why was everything so peaceful now? Mandel and Hariel were the most confused and aggrieved people. They lay on the ground like useless fish with tears flowing down their faces. How did things turn out like this? Could it be that the battle just then was fake? Did the Holy Fairy eat the divine pill that the giant god fiend gave her? The healing effect was fantastic, but they were also injured from the battle. So why didn't they stared blankly at the most powerful being in the central city, interacting harmoniously with the giant god fiend, and their hearts were filled with grief and sorrow. They felt like they were still living in a dream. And Lin was also very thankful that he had brought the black praying mantis with him. It was all thanks to him that he was able to earn the Holy Fairy Maiden's favor with such ease. Now it was time for the transaction. The Holy Fairy Maiden's digestive abilities were extremely strong, and after eating the wood spring pill, most of her injuries were instantly healed. I can sense that the life force energy within my body has increased a lot. Even my cultivation base, which has been stagnant for a long time, is beginning to loosen up. The Holy Fairy Maiden exclaimed with elation on her face. Fairies are extremely sensitive to life force energy, so you'll be able to unleash the full potential of this type of life force pill. Congratulations, little Na. And Lin congratulated with a smile. The Holy Fairy Maiden faltered slightly upon hearing this, before pouting with her hands on her hips. How can you call me little Na? I may be small, but I'm a fairy who has lived for over 10,000 years. I might even be older than you. And Lin's eyes lit up at the sight of the Holy Fairy Maiden's fuming expression. Adorable. A fairy who had lived for over 10,000 years was actually so young. Could it be that all fairies were naturally adorable? Oh, perhaps being small could also increase one's adorableness. For example, a clown was very ugly when it was big, but it was adorably ugly when it was small. I'm a human who has lived for over 20,000 years, so there's nothing wrong with me calling you little Na. and Lin replied with a smile. Really? The holy fairy maiden's green eyes widened in astonishment. Of course. How did I grow from such a small human to such a big man? It's all because of time. And Lin nodded with a serious expression. That sounds reasonable. The holy fairy maiden nodded in agreement. A pleased smile appeared on Lin's face. Seeing as you've recovered from your injuries, let's get down to business. After all, I'm here to obtain something from the central city. The holy fairy maiden nodded before replying in a domineering manner. All right, tell me what you want, and I'll do my best to satisfy you. Chapter 484. And Lin pointed to the 4 golden crystal pagodas beside the divine lake. I want those 4 pagodas. Name your price. The holy fairy maiden was astonished to hear this. You want the Holy Spirit Towers. And Lin nodded. That's right, I want the Holy Spirit Towers. He didn't understand all this nonsense. All he knew was that the core of this tower was the realm essence crystals, and they were of the highest grade. A conflicted expression appeared on Tina's face as she shook her head. No, the Holy Spirit Towers are the most precious treasures that Pangu left behind after he created this Tai Chu continent. Even though they aren't very useful and only serve to nurture the divine lake, they represent an extremely important meaning. So I can't trade them. And Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. Pangu did indeed create the Tai Chu continent, but are you sure he created this continent of yours? What do you mean by that, Giant and Lin? Isn't this continent the Tai Chu continent? Tina asked with a perplexed expression, and Lin took out his Oppa 12 and opened the photo album. Look at these images, he said as he flipped through them. Tina's emerald eyes blinked with curiosity as she looked at the images on the phone. This is a floating continent. It's so beautiful. What is this place? These trees are so tall and huge. Are people moving around on them? It looks a little like the world tree that was recorded in ancient texts. My God, how could there be such a vast lake? It really is boundless. No, this should be the ocean that was recorded in ancient texts. So there really are tall mountains that pierce into the clouds. Just how tall are these mountains? Tina became more and more excited as she looked at the images. After a long while, she raised her head, and her emerald eyes shone with a bright light. Giant and Lin, where did you record these scenes? Why haven't I seen any of them? And Lin smiled. They were all taken on the Tai Chu continent. You're spouting nonsense. If such beautiful scenery was taken on the Tai Chu continent, how could I not know about it? They must have been discovered in some mystic realm, right? Tina was extremely excited, and Lin shook his head. They really were recorded on the Tai Chu continent, but not on this continent. They're on the real Tai Chu continent. That place is boundlessly vast. The scenes I've recorded can't even encompass 1/10,000th of the Tai Chu continent. The difference between the Tai Chu continent and this continent is like the difference between an ocean and a lake. No, it's like the difference between an ocean and a puddle. Tina's slender body shuddered, and she fell into a daze for a few seconds before shaking her head. That's impossible. That's impossible. There are close to 1,000 countries in this world, and there are countless races and races. It's such a vast world. So how could it be as small as you say it is? And Lin heaved a faint sigh. You call a cage that's been completely isolated by the power of extreme frost the entire world. You can reach the edge of this world in a day's flight? From the information I've gathered, your world can indeed be referred to as the Tai Chu continent, but it's a Tai Chu continent that's constantly crumbling. As for the land, it's only a small fragment of the crumbling Tai Chu continent. How would you know just how vast this world is if you haven't ventured out into it? Tina stared at Lin with a dazed expression, as if she had been stunned by Lin's words. After a short while, she shook her head. It's fake. Everything you've said is fake. You must be lying to me, and Lin rolled his eyes. What do I get out of lying to you? The benefit is obtaining these 4 Holy Spirit towers. Aren't you trying to prove that the Holy Spirit towers aren't treasures left behind by Pango?" Tina retorted stubbornly, and Lynn was astonished to hear this. Holy F***CK. That makes sense. That really does seem to be the case. Hee, you call these Holy Spirit towers? They're actually called realm essence crystals. There are tens of millions of them on this crumbling continent. I came to this world to collect realm essence crystals. They're not as valuable as you think they are. Pangu isn't so bored as to throw realm essence crystals all over the place. And Lynn retorted, "How could that be?" Tina's body swayed. "Why is it that I'm so powerful, but you've only heard of me today? It's like I just popped out from a rock." "That's because I'm from the Tai Chu continent. I'm an outsider." And Lynn added insult to injury. "You could also be a hermit who's only just arrived in this world." Tina's worldview hadn't been completely shattered yet, and she retorted stubbornly. And Lynn heaved a faint sigh. "Looks like I'll have to give you some proof. Come out, my treasures!" He roared, and a silver light flashed from his storage ring. "Come out, my spirit pills and spirit fruits." In the blink of an eye, over 100 spirit pills and spirit fruits appeared in front of Tina. Tina's mouth gaped open. Such powerful energy, fluctuations. They're all divine rank, supreme treasures. Over 100 divine rank pills and divine rank fruits. On this continent, all divine rank pills and fruits were extremely rare and precious. The number of divine rank pills and fruits Lynn had just released was many times more than what she had ever seen in her life. "Come out, my spirit tools." 36 spirit tools instantly appeared in the air, all of which exuded bursts of energy fluctuations. Tina took a deep breath. These weapons, these energy fluctuations are even more powerful than divine tools. They're all holy tools. She looked down at her golden long sword, and an expression of shock appeared on her face. Her golden long sword was a holy tool that had been passed down from generation to generation. It was a top-tier holy tool. However, there were a few weapons here whose energy fluctuations were comparable to her golden long sword, and Lynn was very pleased with Tina's reaction. But he wasn't done yet. "Come out, my immortal pills, immortal fruits, and immortal tools." There was a 7th grade immortal pill, a 7th grade immortal pill, a yin-yang true energy pill, 3 8th grade immortal fruits, a 3rd grade infernal blood immortal fruit, a 1st grade serene immortal herb, a fire blood divine tree, a dead realm flower, a diamond soul, an ethereal spirit bone, a demonic blood orb, an ice holy lotus, and a ghost crystal armor. There was an elementary rank immortal tool, the heart lotus ice sword, a high rank immortal tool, the realm piercing nail, and the divine flame bead. The vital energy of heaven and earth surged as soon as the treasures appeared. Yin and yang intertwined. Evil ghosts wailed. The god of fire ascended, and a world of ice and frost appeared. The holy fairy maiden's mouth gaped open in astonishment as she stared at the treasures before her. The energy fluctuations emanating from each and every one of these treasures far exceeded her knowledge. These were definitely above the holy rank. She had never seen such powerful treasures in this world. However, she was seeing a whole bunch of them here. How could this be? Tina shook her little head from side to side, and her long golden hair fluttered in the wind like waves, reflecting the turmoil in her heart. "What are these things? Why do you have all these things?" A faint smile appeared on Lynn's face. "These are the treasures I collected on the real Tai Chu continent. There are many more powerful and valuable treasures on the Tai Chu continent. This is the worst." Tina's body shuddered upon hearing this, and she opened her mouth to speak, but tears began to flow from her eyes before she even had a chance to say anything. Her worldview had finally been shattered by Lynn's display of wealth in the face of these dazzling treasures. "Wah!" Tina choked with sobs. So I've been a frog in a well." Chapter 485. Tina's worldview had completely collapsed, and she sobbed like a weeping beauty. Teardrops slid down her white and tender cheeks, sparkling and translucent like little pearls under the sunlight. And Lynn stowed away the dazzling treasures hovering in the air before patting Tina's little head with a comforting expression. "All right, don't cry. It's just that the world is a little bigger than you think. What's there to cry about?" Tina wiped her tears away. But it's not just a little bigger, it's countless times bigger. And I've been deceived for over 10,000 years. I've been ignorant for over 10,000 years, wah. I'm crying at my own stupidity, and Lynn felt like he shouldn't say anything now. Instead, he should let her vent. When a person discovered that the world they knew was only a pitifully small cage, anyone would feel some negative emotions, especially the proud holy fairy maiden. She had finally reached the pinnacle of this world, only to find out that she was only at the level of a kindergarten. That was quite a heavy blow to her. The ancestral teachings of our elven tribe are to uphold the order of the entire Tai Chu continent. We've carried out this ancestral teaching for generations, and we call ourselves the guardians of the Tai Chu continent. Now, it looks like this belief is so laughable. Tina sobbed. It's not really laughable. At the very least, you've ensured that all living beings on this continent can flourish in peace, and you can indeed be called the guardians of the Tai Chu continent, and Lynn offered words of consolation. Tina looked up at Lynn before suddenly saying, "I agree. I'll trade the 4 Holy Spirit towers with you." And Lynn's eyes lit up upon hearing this. "You've finally thought it through?" Tina nodded. "There's no rule against trading the Holy Spirit towers anyway. At the end of the day, their only purpose is to materialize the Divine Lake. The Divine Lake isn't very useful anyway, and there are many forbidden areas that can replace it. As long as it can help the central city develop, I don't mind trading it away." "That's good. You've seen my treasures. Tell me, what do you need?" And Lynn said with a smile, "I want 5 holy pills that contain rich life force energy, 3 small holy grade weapons, and a tree with red flames and long roots. Is that okay?" Tina's voice trailed off toward the end, as if she felt like she was asking for too much. Wasn't that how business negotiations worked? First, raise a relatively high request, then slowly lower the standard, and finally stabilize it at a range that both parties could accept. And Lynn stroked his chin. 5 elixirs, 3 spirit weapons, and the fire blood god tree. These conditions were not high, and he could still accept them. Seeing that Lynn was deep in thought, Tina felt a little uneasy and ashamed. She added, "If I plant that tree with the red flames, it should be able to give birth to a new, sacred cultivation ground that can replace the Holy Spirit Tower. That's why I don't want to abandon that tree. As for other things, we can still discuss them. There's no need for further discussion. Deal." And Lynn laughed. "Huh." Tina's eyes widened with incredulity as she stared at Lynn. "That's it. There's no need to bargain." Seeing as Lynn had saved her life before, she was initially willing to agree to the deal even if she only wanted the divine tree. Who would have thought that Lynn would agree so readily? The deal was sealed. Tina began to evacuate the people within the Holy Spirit Tower and the Divine Lake. Then Lynn uprooted the 4 towers with his bare hands. He swept aside all of the surrounding buildings to reveal their dazzling cores. The golden realm essence crystals shimmered under the sunlight. They were about 1 meter in length and looked like spirit stones, but they exuded a unique energy fluctuation that made the space around them more viscous. All of the people gathered around the Divine Lake were dumbstruck as they stared at the incredulous scenes unfolding in the distance. The giant god-fiend uprooted the Holy Spirit Tower, and the Holy Maiden was cooperating with him. However, they came to their senses in the next instant. The giant god-fiend brought out 5 holy pills, 3 massive holy tools, and a strange-looking crimson tree, which he handed to the Holy Maiden. The Holy Maiden stowed these items away into her spatial tool. So, the Holy Maiden is making a deal with the giant god-fiend. This giant god fiend is different from the giant god fiends of the past. Not only does it resemble a human in appearance, but it also possesses extremely high intelligence and many powerful treasures. On top of that, it also possesses unparalleled power. Even the Holy Maiden is no match for it, so a peaceful resolution is indeed the best outcome. That tree is clearly extraordinary, and there are so many holy pills and holy tools. Why do I feel like the giant god fiend is on the losing end? You didn't see the spectacular spectacle when the giant god fiend unleashed his treasures. Just as all of the powerful beings were discussing spiritedly among themselves, the deal between Enlil and the Holy Maiden had already concluded. The 3 spirit tools were ice shards, snowflake spikes, and frost needles. These were the 3 spirit tools that Enlil didn't know how to use. However, they were the most suitable spirit tools for a super tiny person like Tina, so everyone was happy with the outcome. Tina played with the 2 snowflake spikes in her hands. In her hands, the snowflake spikes were like snowflake spears that were even taller than herself. They came in sets of 1 basket and 1 white, and 1 holy tool was equivalent to 2 holy tools. Buy 1, get 1 free. I'll give these snowflake spikes to Mandel and Harris. They are the most powerful guardians of the Central City, so they have the right to receive these 2 holy tools, Tina suddenly said. She then surveyed her surroundings before turning pale with fright. Ah, Mandel, Harris, why are you 2 still lying in the pit? Mandel and Harris, who were practically useless, instantly burst into tears. My God, the Saintess has finally noticed us. In order to absorb the power of the realm essence crystals, Enlil needed a quiet and secluded place. Tina led him to a green, wood-restricted area. The life energy here was extremely rich, and there were guards standing guard outside, so normal people wouldn't disturb them. Enlil meditated on the grass and brought out 4 golden realm essence crystals. The mission given to him by the system was to obtain and absorb 10 golden realm essence crystals within a month. If he succeeded, he would obtain the embryonic body of the war god. He didn't know what this body of the war god was, but he could tell from its name that it was an extremely powerful existence. Enlil released 2 Gundams from his storage ring to stand guard for him. Then he activated his cultivation method and began to absorb the energy within the realm essence crystals. An indescribable power slowly flowed out from the realm essence crystals and flowed into Enlin's body. Fusing into his blood, organs, bones, and meridians, he was a little astonished, and he sighed to himself. Perhaps his constitution really was special. Normal people were completely unable to absorb the energy contained within the realm essence crystals. However, he was able to continuously absorb the energy within the realm essence crystals using his cultivation method. This rate of absorption wasn't very fast, and he could only absorb 1 golden realm essence crystal every hour or so. Tina summoned all of the powerful beings in the Central City to deal with the aftermath of the battle. She also went to plant the Fire Blood Divine Tree and distribute the holy pills and holy tools. Enlil finished absorbing the 4 realm essence crystals, and the system indicated that he had completed 4/10 of the mission. There were no changes within his body, and he didn't know what the effects of absorbing the energy within his body were. Enlil took a deep breath before slowly opening his eyes. He then discovered that Tina was sitting on a small rock. Her white dress danced in the wind, and her golden wings fluttered slightly, sending specks of golden light into the air. She rested her chin on her hands, and she swayed her legs as she gazed at Enlil with a pair of glowing eyes. Chapter 486. I didn't think that the energy of the Holy Spirit Tower could be absorbed into one's body. A clear and melodious voice rang out, like the chirping of a bird. Enlil looked at the realm essence crystals in front of him with a smile. In my world, these are called realm essence crystals. Not only do we have golden realm essence crystals, but we also have white, green, blue, and red realm essence crystals. If you have any more of these things, you can trade them with me. Tina shook her head with a smile. I don't have any more. From what I know, this is only available in our Central City. If that's the case, then it's time for me to leave this place, and Lynn said in a low voice. Leave? Are you going to the outside world? Tina looked at Lynn with a slightly shaky voice, and Lynn nodded. That's right. I'm going to the outside world. It's a much bigger world there. But the border of the continent is a land of extreme frost. No one has ever been able to cross that place, so there's a very good chance that you'll freeze to death. Tina didn't say that Lynn was dead for sure because Lynn was more powerful than anyone on this continent. You know that this is only a possibility. I'm very confident in my power, and it's not my style to give up exploring just because there's a possibility of danger. And Lynn squatted down, and the setting sun cast a layer of light over his body. He looked down at Tina with a smile. The world is so big. If I'm trapped in one place, I'll miss out on many things, so I have to leave this place. Tina raised her head to look at the man before her, and her eyes shimmered like precious gems. Little Ma, I'm going to go now. And Lynn stood up and bade farewell before summoning his black brick. Wait, Tina's pleasant voice sounded from behind him, and Lynn turned around with a perplexed expression. What is it? Is the scenery you showed me on that cube real? Tina raised her voice as she clenched her fists, and Lynn chuckled lightly. It's all real. There's no reason for me to lie to you. Then can you bring me along? Tina pursed her lips and stared at Lynn with her beautiful eyes. And Lynn was also dumbstruck as he stared blankly at Tina. The world is so big, and I want to see it too. I want to see a different scenery, and I want to see just how wonderful the real world is. Tina had a determined expression on her face, and her eyes were filled with a burning desire. Then your central city. And Lynn hesitated. I've seen this city and this continent for 10,000 years. Now I just want to leave. My cousin's aptitude isn't bad. She's already at the peak of the immortal realm. She's qualified to inherit my position, Tina said. Should he wash his hands of the matter and let his cousin take over? And Lynn deliberated for a moment before he nodded and said, All right, I promise you. I'll bring you out with me. Thank you. You're such a good person, Giant and Lynn. Chapter 487. And Lynn stood up and began to make his way toward the glacial realm that separated the entire continent from the rest of the continent. Tina stood on Lynn's shoulder and unleashed a defensive spell technique. A white barrier of light enshrouded both her and Lynn's bodies like flowing water. And Lynn was slightly taken aback. What are you doing? I'm keeping this frosty power at bay. Why? Tina was perplexed. Don't expend your energy too early. We don't know how far we'll have to travel to get through this glacial realm. We'll expend our energy to unleash a defensive barrier when our bodies are unable to withstand the frost. And Lynn replied, Oh. Tina obediently withdrew her defensive spell technique. As expected of a giant who had lived for over 20,000 years, she was indeed very experienced. And Lynn extended his finger through the boundary between the two continents, and an extremely frosty sensation erupted from his fingertip. The blue gas seemed to have sensed something as it pounced toward Lynn's finger, and Lynn didn't evade and allowed the blue gas to converge on his finger. Immediately afterward, the terrifying frosty sensation threatened to freeze his entire finger, and the air itself began to crackle. The power of this frosty sensation was no less powerful than a soul formation stage, Cultivator's frosty spell technique. And Lynn harumphed coldly as divine flames of the great sun burst forth from his fingertip. The blue gas was instantly incinerated into nothingness by the scorching divine flames. He nodded. It looked like his divine flames were quite effective against the blue gas. He tossed a plume of flames in another direction, only to find that the blue gas didn't pounce toward it. Instead, it dodged into the distance. It looked like the blue gas only sought out living beings. And Lynn paused momentarily before taking a deep breath. Then he and Tina stepped into the perilous realm that no one had been able to pass. He and Tina were immediately struck by a bone-chilling cold as soon as they stepped into the glacial realm. Even spirit-nurturing stage cultivators wouldn't be able to last more than 15 minutes in temperatures like this. Tina instinctively wanted to unleash a defensive spell technique, but she stopped herself after recalling Enlin's words. Enlin continued onward atop his black brick, and the blue gas in the surrounding space seemed to have sensed it and pounced toward Enlin and Tina. However, it was left behind due to its slow speed. As they went deeper, the blue gas became a part of the space, and there was no way to hide. At this time, he could only rely on brute force. Enlin felt his entire body being enveloped by an extremely cold power, which was constantly seeping into his body, attempting to freeze his blood and meridians. At this moment, he felt an itch in his ear. "Hey, how did you get into my ears?" Enlin exclaimed in shock. "Cold! Phew, it's so cold!" Tina shivered uncontrollably in Enlin's ear. Enlin, Tina couldn't help but cast a spell technique that could insulate the two of them from the cold. Enlin indicated that he could still hold on and asked her to cast a shield on herself. As they traveled deeper and deeper, the temperature began to drop, and the blue gas also became more and more concentrated. After traveling for another 10 or so kilometers, Enlin was finally unable to hold on any longer, and he unleashed his great holy flame to protect himself and Tina while swallowing a blood spirit pill. After traveling for less than 5 kilometers, the great holy flame was suddenly broken. Enlin had no choice but to unleash his demonic star flame. Then, the setting moon flame, the heavenly void flame, Tina looked up at the vast expanse of blue up ahead, and she began to chant over and over again, "I'm going to die! I'm going to die!" Enlin's lips twitched upon hearing this. Why was Tina chanting over and over again in his ear? He felt as if there was a sinister female ghost blowing a sinister wind into his ear while cursing. "I'm going to die! I'm going to die!" This was a King thrilling experience. Boom! Before they knew it, they had stumbled into a vast expanse of darkness. The terrifying power of frost instantly pierced through the defenses of the 4 divine flames, and Enlin immediately unleashed his origin energy of the netherworld to materialize the 4 divine flames again. He had no intention of retreating now. His only thought was to pass through this area. Hold on tight. He spread open his wings of wind, and his speed abruptly increased explosively as his body transformed into a thin black line that flew forward in a frenzy. Tina pressed herself tightly against Enlin's ear, and her face turned deathly pale as she looked up at the boundless darkness and the terrifying power of frost. Not long after that, a resounding boom erupted, and Enlin crashed into a barrier. Enlin immediately pulled out his evil-slaying sword and slashed toward the barrier. Boom! The black sword projection was completely unscathed upon crashing into the barrier. Boundless frost began to corrode his divine flame, and it looked like it was about to completely break through. Enlin's heart stirred as he summoned his realm-piercing nail and began to chant a spell technique. This high-grade immortal artifact was the most effective in breaking through spatial barriers. "Break through!" Enlin roared, and the realm-piercing nail abruptly pierced toward the barrier before him with the power to break through a realm. A streak of red light pierced through the darkness, leaving a web-like crack in its wake. Boom! As if the light of day had returned, a blue light shone from the crack. Enlin charged into the crack without any hesitation and arrived in a new world. The pressure around him abated drastically, and even though it was still extremely cold, the terrifying power of frost had disappeared. His origin energy of the netherworld dissipated, and he half knelt to the ground in exhaustion. He turned around to look behind him to find that the hole in the barrier had already slowly returned to its original state. Tina also stared blankly at the scene behind her. Her delicate body swayed slightly as if something had really been proven. Her eyes turned red and tears once again flowed down her cheeks. Before her was a gargantuan black barrier with no end in sight. The black barrier was slightly curved, as if it was encompassing something extremely gargantuan. She knew that what was being encompassed was the continent that she had always thought was the entire world. Tina turned her gaze forward to a vast expanse of mountains that stretched as far as the eye could see. Connected to the mountains was a sky of blue and purple. So this world really is vast. Tears streamed down Tina's face as she stared blankly at the scenery in the distance. Stop sighing. Help me up and use a spell technique to warm me up. And Lin's teeth chattered as he spoke. The after effects of using the origin energy of the netherworld made him temporarily unable to circulate his vital energy, and his cold resistance plummeted. Tina came to her senses and stared at Lin with astonishment on her face. She clearly didn't think that Giant and Lin would be so fragile. She immediately cast a warm barrier toward Lin before materializing a giant hand of air to grab Lin and fly toward the mountain ranges in the distance. After flying out of the world of ice and snow, Tina was greeted by the sight of a barren mountain range devoid of any signs of life. The outside world doesn't look all that beautiful. She pursed her lips, and Lin rolled his eyes. The world is so big, there must be beautiful scenery and ugly scenery. Huh? There seems to be something over there. Let's go take a look. Tina grabbed onto Lin and flew toward a certain place in the distance with an excited expression. Chapter 488. Don't get so excited, little Na. Don't run around. I'm still in a weakened state. Can I develop more slowly for now? And Lin was grabbed by a vital energy hand, and he felt extremely uncomfortable, as if he were a little chick being grabbed by an eagle. Don't worry, his aura isn't very powerful. He's only at the heaven rank at most. Tina's eyes lit up as if she had discovered something new, and Lin rolled his eyes. What King heaven rank? Don't bring your old theories here. He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the moving figures in the distance. They were simply too far away for him to see clearly. However, he could vaguely make out that they looked like human figures. So many giant god fiends. Tina let loose a cry of surprise, and Lin also saw that they were a group of humans with black fur on their bodies. They weren't gorillas, they were humans. All of the humans wore blank expressions as they bared their white teeth. They seemed to have also spotted Lin, and they immediately opened their mouths before charging toward Lin and Tina. There were only about 100 of them, and their auras were only at the 7th or 8th stage Tao body. Can I kill them? Tina asked, and Lin shook his head. Forget it, they pose no threat to us. Let's conserve our energy and continue onward. He had only used the origin energy of the netherworld for a short period of time, so the after effects didn't last very long. He would recover after a while. Tina led Lin deeper into the mountains in the distance, trying to find a place to rest. However, as they ventured deeper, they discovered that it was becoming more and more dangerous. The earth would release all types of poisonous creatures, such as giant spiders, scorpions, and pythons, crawling all over the ground. All of them had one thing in common, and that was that they all had black fur on their bodies. Under the illumination of the sun, these black hairs were like black ink that sucked in light extremely deep. These poisonous creatures were all extremely dangerous, and they would spray venom toward Tina and Lin in the sky. Tina had expended a lot of her energy to pass through the glacial realm, and she was feeling quite frustrated now that she had to divert some of her attention to avoid these attacks. Then, flaming vultures, bloodthirsty bats, demonic falcons, all sorts of terrifying creatures pounced toward Tina. Ugh, why are all the creatures in this world so scary? Why are they all so big, so powerful, so disgusting, so unfriendly? Tina looked at these sinister creatures in this barren, poisonous world, and began to complain incessantly with an aggrieved and frustrated expression. Are the images on your cube all lies? What about the beautiful scenery? Where are the cute little animals? She looked at Lin with a resentful expression, as if she had been sold. And Lin's lips twitched as he explained, The images on my phone are images of the Tai Chu continent, not images of this crumbling continent. To be honest, I have no idea what this continent is like." Tina pursed her lips and harumphed lightly as her eyes darted around this world. It seemed that even in such an ugly world, there were still things that attracted her attention. Wow, what a huge mountain! Tina let loose a cry of surprise as she changed directions and flew toward a yellow mountain. And Lynn looked at the mountain to find that it was only about 1,000 feet tall. It was a little steep at most. How could a mountain like this be considered tall? Sigh, it's so pitiful to be so ignorant, always making a fuss over nothing. Tina flew toward the mountain with Lynn in tow. There was no poisonous gas emanating from the mountain, and there were no disgusting creatures either, so they decided to set this place up as a place to rest. Right at this moment, a pair of red eyes appeared on the top half of the mountain. Immediately afterward, the mountain began to tremor and crack open as a massive, cavernous mouth appeared before biting down toward Tina and Lynn. "Ah!" Tina screamed before turning around and fleeing with Lynn in tow. The neck of this massive mountain could elongate, and it shot forth like a gargantuan python. From Tina's perspective, it looked like a mountainous mouth was about to bite down on her. She had never seen such a terrifying scene before, and her face instantly paled with fear. "Don't panic. It's just big. It's no match for you." And Lynn yelled. Tina instinctively unleashed a fairy cannon of light upon hearing this. The white cannon of light crashed into the gargantuan mouth, upon which a violent explosion erupted, turning the inky black mouth into a vast expanse of white. The massive mountain tremored violently, and the mouth shrank back into itself. And Lynn heaved a sigh of relief. This massive mountain was only at the soul formation initial stage, but Tina was already at the soul formation pinnacle stage. In the face of an opponent like this, it would be far too humiliating for her to lose all of her battle intent. Tina stared at the retreating mountain with a hint of bewilderment. "It's so big, so why is it so weak? Who gave you the illusion that the bigger it is, the more powerful it is?" And Lynn snapped. Tina replied, "You." And Lynn. Just as the two of them were about to leave, the sky suddenly began to tremor. Immediately afterward, a series of inky black rifts appeared in the sky, extending as far as the eye could see. At the very least, from Lynn's perspective, this was the case in a radius of close to 5 kilometers. These rifts were like a gargantuan black net that enshrouded the entire sky. Immediately afterward, the rift split open, and an inky black liquid flowed out from within. This liquid was extremely dense and dark, and it fell toward the ground like inky black blades. "Huh, what's this?" Tina stretched out her hand curiously, wanting to examine the black liquid, and Lynn was shocked to see this. "Danger! Get away from this liquid." In Tina's heart, and Lynn had already become an extremely knowledgeable senior. Hence, after hearing Lynn's words, she immediately gave up on the idea of examining the liquid and dragged Lynn with her as they dodged the black liquid. The massive mountain seemed to have encountered something extremely terrifying. The mountain seemed to have become even shorter, and a golden barrier of light appeared above the mountain like an umbrella. The black liquid fell to the ground and penetrated the ground without any impediment, leaving a series of terrifying rifts in its wake. Some of the creatures on the ground were unable to evade in time, and their bodies were sliced apart by the black liquid as they wailed in anguish. What is this liquid?" Tina's face turned pale with fright. There were no energy fluctuations emanating from the liquid, but it was imbued with extremely terrifying power. If it weren't for the fact that Lynn had stopped her in time, her little hand would have most likely been severed already. This is the power of chaos that has dissipated into this world. This crumbling world is no longer able to maintain its stability. And Lynn heaved a forlorn sigh. From the information he had received, this continent had already been reduced to less than 1% of its original size, and many parts of it had already been reduced to nothingness. It appeared that this place was also in the process of crumbling. Tina unleashed a series of movement techniques to evade the black liquid. But the massive mountain was simply too massive, and she could only take the black liquid head-on. The golden barrier of light that resembled an umbrella was initially able to keep some of the black liquid at bay. However, an extremely massive rift suddenly appeared in the sky, and a huge clump of black liquid flowed out of the rift before raining down upon the massive mountain like a miniature waterfall. The terrifying power of the black liquid instantly sliced the golden umbrella apart. The black liquid was like the sharpest blade, and the massive mountain's body was sliced cleanly in half like butter. The massive mountain didn't even have a chance to let loose a wail of anguish before its body was sliced in half. White liquid flowed through the air like floodwaters. That was most likely blood. The massive mountain's body was then sliced into pieces by the black liquid falling from the sky. This was a process similar to dismemberment, and the massive mountain's body was sliced into countless pieces, creating an extremely gruesome sight to behold. Tina's slender body was trembling slightly. In her eyes, the black liquid was emanating an extremely terrifying aura of death that enshrouded her entire body. Thankfully, this calamity didn't last for too long. A burst of self-repairing mighty power of heaven and earth appeared, and the black rift in the sky slowly closed up. Everything returned to normal. That's right, the entire earth seemed to have been cleansed, and everything was deathly silent. All of the ravines and bottomless rifts on the ground began to slowly mend together before returning to their original state, as if they were scars that had been healed. Some dark life forms began to squirm and regenerate, as if they had regained their vitality. So this is what rain looks like in the outside world. So scary, so scary, Tina muttered incessantly. And Lynn, how did this little girl end up imagining things like this? Did she even listen to his explanation just now? It's so scary, but it's very exciting. Tina's voice was trembling with excitement. And Lynn, so did she awaken to something? Chapter 489. On a certain plateau in the ancient Tai Chu realm, a pitch-black true demon with a pair of horns on its head and a pair of bat wings on its back tore a West Sea ancient demon into shreds. Ha ha ha. The realm essence crystals are mine. The true demon stowed the ancient demon's storage ring in its hand, and its crimson eyes glowed with a bloodthirsty red light as it stared at the green crystals on the ground. There were 16 of them, on the summit of a certain snowy mountain, 15 kilometers away. A short woman in a pink dress opened her yellow eyes and looked toward a certain direction in the distance. Her eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, and her slender waist bent slightly as she drew her pink longbow. 16 green realm essence crystals, which is equivalent to 480,000 spirit stones. On top of that, the storage rings of 2 soul formation stage, powerful beings, divine technique, spatial, demon-slaying arrow. Vital energy surged violently before materializing into a pink arrow, from which terrifying power continued to accumulate. She possessed the bloodline of the Kuan Pang, an ancient mythological beast, and had awakened the eyes of the Kuan Pang, which granted her the ability to lock onto a target and see beyond the visual range. This ability, combined with her extraordinary archery skills, made her invincible in this world. The true demon in the distance was already her third prey. The true demon sang a song as it stowed the realm essence crystals into its storage ring like a farmer harvesting his crops. After plucking the last radish, it heaved a sigh of relief, and a satisfied smile appeared on its face. Right at this moment, it suddenly felt a chill run down its spine. In the face of impending doom, it immediately turned around and shielded its head with its hands. Whoosh! A pink arrow pierced through the air, leaving a dazzling pink trail in its wake before crashing into the true demon's hands. The terrifying power of the arrow instantly tore its hands apart before crashing into the true demon's head. Boom! The explosion of energy tore apart the earth within a radius of over a kilometer, and a small mushroom cloud rose into the air. What a day of nuclear annihilation! The woman chuckled as she flew toward the direction of the explosion. At the center of the explosion, the true demon's powerful body had already been reduced to charcoal, and its head was nowhere to be seen. Time to collect the treasures. The woman picked up the 2 storage rings from the ground with a smile and was just about to leave. At this moment, the ground within a radius of 1,000 feet suddenly surged up in a circle of water. Half a kilometer away, a gigantic seahorse with lightning coiled around its body and a silver spear in its hand had a smile on its face. Turtle Priest, your strategy was quite accurate. Not only was the direction correct, even the timing was perfect. The air twisted and a 3-zhang-long sea turtle suddenly appeared, holding a golden stone in its mouth. Humph! How dare you kill the demons of the West Sea? Pay with your life. Pooh! It spat out a mouthful of golden stones towards the woman in the pink dress. Seeing this, the woman was startled and immediately fled in the opposite direction. She wasn't very strong in close combat, and she had expended too much of her energy in that arrow. She had no chance of winning against 2 soul formation, final stage, West Sea Demon tribe cultivators. Hee, you want to run? The seahorse chuckled coldly as it transformed into a bolt of lightning and pounced toward the woman at an extremely fast speed. At this moment, Lin and Tina had finally escaped from the poisonous mist and arrived at a certain plateau. Phew! The scenery here is quite nice. Let's rest here. And Lin couldn't be bothered to run around anymore, so he swallowed a blood spirit pill and sat down to meditate. He had already recovered from the aftereffects of using the origin energy of the netherworld, but he still couldn't fight. For safety's sake, he could only find a place to rest and wait for the aftereffects to pass. You call this a nice scenery? Tina placed her hands on her hips with an enraged expression. There isn't even a single green plant here. It's all black and barren, and you call this a nice scenery? And Lin pursed his lips. Then, how about we go back? Tina, and Lin didn't say anything else and closed his eyes to rest. After what seemed like an eternity, a series of explosions suddenly erupted in the distance. Wow, Giant and Lin, look over there. There's a very powerful creature fighting 5 kilometers away. Tina exclaimed with excitement. What the F***CK are you looking at? Hurry up and cast a concealment spell technique on us. The creatures of this world don't treat bystanders with kindness. And Lin rolled his eyes at Tina. Tina obediently cast a holy elven concealment spell technique on Lin and herself. Wow, that seahorse and turtle are so powerful. The other giant god fiend can't hold on. Tina exclaimed, and Lin's brows perked up upon hearing this. Giant god fiend? Does it have wings, horns, tail, or something like that? Wings? Horns? Tail? How could a giant god fiend have something like that? Oh, right, she's wearing clothes just like you. So she looks very much like a human. Tina continued, and Lin abruptly stood up before turning toward the direction Tina was pointing in. Lightning and waves were surging there, but they were 5 kilometers away, so they couldn't see what was happening. That giant god fiend was electrocuted again, and it's running toward us. Should we retreat, so we don't get caught up in the battle? Tina asked, and Lin fell silent for a moment before shaking his head with a firm expression. Forget it, let's just fight. The giant god fiend that Tina was referring to was most likely a human, which meant that it was a member of the Celestial Court. And Lin wasn't going to leave a member of the Celestial Court in the lurch. Even though he couldn't fight, he still had Gundams 1 and Gundams. Right at this moment, the woman in the pink dress was already less than 1.5 kilometers away from Lin. She was in quite a sorry state, and her long black hair was slightly curled up from being struck by the lightning. Her dress was torn and stained with blood, revealing her fair and well-proportioned calves. Gundams 1, Gundams 2, Trap the Seahorse and Turtle. And Lin's storage ring flashed, and two majestic mechanical puppets appeared in the air. And Lin and Tina had both withdrawn their concealment spell techniques, so the woman in the pink dress was able to spot them from afar, and a glimmer of hope reignited in her eyes. And Lin recognized this woman. Wang Xuanzhan had introduced her to him before. Her name was Lu Chu. Lu Chu was a senior student 13 years older than him, and she was currently at the Soul Formation pinnacle stage. She was one of the most bad *SS students in the past few years, so she had a portrait of her in the university's Hall of Fame. And Lin, I didn't think I'd see you here. Come on, let's kill those two stinky sea monsters together. Lu Chu immediately recognized the man in the distance, and her eyes lit up with excitement. She was very confident in Lin's strength, and she immediately turned to attack the sea monsters. Seahorse, Turtle, you've chased me all the way across the plateau, so it's time for you to die. She unleashed a flurry of arrows toward the seahorse in front of her, and Lin didn't expect that Lu Chu would recognize him. He was given a huge fright upon seeing that she didn't try to escape and instead tried to retaliate. Senior Sister Lu, don't rush over. I can't fight due to some kind of restriction. And Lin's words caused Lu Chu to stumble, and a chill ran down her spine. She didn't even have a chance to say anything before the seahorse with the silver spear in its hand had already evaded one arrow after another before charging toward her. Chapter 490. Lu Chu retreated with all her might, but the lightning seahorse's silver spear was even faster than her. Right at this moment, a blue ionic deprivation barrier appeared in front of Lu Chu. The two Gundams had sprung into action. Boom! The spear collided with the ionic deprivation barrier, and a resounding boom erupted. Energy exploded, but the spear's terrifying power still managed to tear the light barrier apart. However, due to this momentary delay, Lu Chu had already retreated over 100 meters away. She drew her bow, and a series of pink energy arrows flew through the air toward the seahorse's body. These energy arrows were extremely fast, and the seahorse didn't even have time to withdraw its spear to evade them. A gigantic water barrier rose up from the ground, blocking the seahorse's path. Boom, boom, boom. The flying arrows crashed into the water barrier, creating a series of splashes. The water barrier was like a sturdy metal plate, and it was able to keep the energy arrows at bay. An elderly but calm voice sounded. Oh, who would have thought that you would have human helpers? However, you won't be able to escape. I've already prepared my golden stone space, so you'll all have to stay here. A huge sea turtle flew toward the seahorse from behind before spitting out a golden stone. The stone flew into the sky, upon which a brilliant golden light erupted forth. Immediately afterward, a golden space with a radius of 1/2 kilometer instantly enshrouded in Lin and Lu Chu. Wow, what a huge turtle! This turtle is even bigger than the ones I've seen in the past. Tina stared at the sea turtle with astonishment on her face, and Lin pursed his lips. That's a sea turtle, not a turtle. Oh, then what was it saying just then? Why can't I understand it? Was it speaking the sea turtle language? Tina asked. That's the Tai Chu language. And Lin rolled his eyes. Nonsense. We're speaking the Tai Chu language now. Tina placed her hands on her hips, and Lin shook his head. You don't know **T. We're speaking the ancient man language now. Tina didn't retort upon hearing this. After all, and Lin's reputation as an erudite and knowledgeable person was still firmly rooted in her heart. She felt like she was a country bumpkin, and everything in Lin said was the law. Lu Chu had also discovered the little ferry beside Lin. Even though their escape route had been sealed, the two of them were still conversing in a strange language, and she couldn't help but speak in a panicked voice. Mr. Lin, this space has been sealed by the Golden Rock, so you can't fight. I won't be able to hold on even with those two silver puppets." Just as they were speaking, Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 had already been smashed into the ground by the lightning seahorse, and the huge sea turtle also began to pounce toward Lu Chu-Chu. "Don't be afraid, you still have little elf," and Lin comforted. "Little elf?" Lu Chu-Chu glanced suspiciously at the tiny creature that was no larger than a mosquito. "Go, little Na. It's time for you to display your true strength," and Lin said, "Pooh." The sea turtle spat out a wave of water toward Lu Chu-Chu and Lin. The wave grew larger and larger until it reached over 1,000 feet in height before sweeping toward the two of them. "Holy Judgment, Astia, Holy Slash!" Tina raised her hands high into the air, and a silver longsword flew into the sky. The sword was so sharp that even the space around it began to tremor before slashing down toward the massive wave. With a hua sound, the silver longsword split the huge waves with unparalleled power and slashed toward the sea turtle. An expression of shock appeared on the sea turtle's face, and it instantly retracted its head into its shell. Boom! The monstrous sword strike struck the turtle's shell, and a gash was carved into the turtle's shell. The enormous force behind the strike even knocked the sea turtle back several hundred meters. Not only did Lu Chu-Chu's eyes widen in shock, but even the seahorse was also given a fright. This tiny creature's strength was way too powerful, and Lin nodded with satisfaction. This Tina was a lot more powerful than when he had battled her. At the time, Tina had just returned from slaying the evil dragon, and she had to suppress the power of the curse. Even so, the power she could unleash was comparable to that of a cultivator at the soul formation pinnacle stage. Now that her injuries had been completely healed, she was naturally even more powerful. Lu Chu-Chu saw a glimmer of hope, and she turned to Tina. "Little fairy, can you hold off those two sea monsters for 10 seconds while I prepare a spell technique?" And Lin relayed her words to Tina, and Tina nodded. "I'll do my best." Lu Chu-Chu took a deep breath, and her eyes became extremely sharp again. She slowly drew her pink longbow, and an extremely vast and mighty aura began to emanate from her body. The seahorse knew that something was amiss upon seeing this, and it immediately transformed into a bolt of lightning before pouncing toward Lu Chu-Chu. Tina materialized a white, holy light long sword before pouncing toward the seahorse. "Piss off!" The seahorse roared as it swung its silver sword through the air, sweeping up waves of lightning. Tina pursed her lips as her white, holy light long sword transformed into an impenetrable sword net, which kept the seahorse's ferocious attacks at bay. 3 seconds later, the pink arrow of energy had taken shape. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was still surging toward the arrow of energy. The color of the arrow deepened, and the energy fluctuations emanating from its body became more and more fearsome. And Lin stared at Lu Chu-Chu with astonishment on his face. He felt like he was looking at a heavenly bird soaring through the heavens, and that heavenly bird was staring down at its prey. Lu Chu-Chu's current state was completely different from her disheveled self from before. She had transformed into a hunter, as if she were a god of slaughter who stood in the heavens and reigned supreme over her enemies. And Lin was impressed by Lu Chu-Chu's ability to make it onto the university's celebrity rankings board. Not only was she at the pinnacle of her cohort of students, but she was also the most dazzling among all cohorts of students. Whoosh! 10 seconds later, a small crimson arrow appeared at the center of the pink arrow, and the tip of the arrow was glowing with a menacing red light. Divine technique, bloodline demon-slaying arrow. Lu Chu-Chu let loose a delicate cry, and the arrow left the bow. The pink arrow glowed with a red light as it tore through the air at an extremely terrifying speed, hurtling directly toward the seahorse's head. The seahorse reacted extremely quickly as lightning burst forth from its body, and it instantly teleported several hundred meters to the side. Whoosh! The pink arrow suddenly changed direction, and a red light flashed as it locked onto the seahorse's head. A chill ran down the seahorse's spine, and an extremely terrifying sense of impending doom engulfed its entire body. "Break through!" it roared as lightning burst forth from its silver spear, and it stabbed toward the direction from which the arrow was flying. The spear was traveling at an extremely fast speed, and it seemed like it was going to collide with the arrow. However, right at that instant, the arrow suddenly disappeared. An illusion technique? The seahorse blinked in confusion. Bam! In the next instant, its head exploded into a cloud of blood mist, and its consciousness was pulverized by the terrifying power of the explosion. Immediately afterward, a series of red vein patterns appeared on the seahorse's body, and they spread over its entire body like blood vessels. Bam! The seahorse's body also exploded, and it couldn't be any more dead. And Lynn's eyes widened in shock. What kind of F***king archery technique was this? Could it be spatial skipping? Speaking of which, she was able to perform spatial skipping even before reaching the return to void stage. However, upon further thought, even he was able to tear through space with his realm-piercing nail. So it made sense that Lu Chu was a little freakish after unleashing that arrow. Lu Chu's features paled slightly, and she looked around the battlefield with a curious expression. "Huh, where's that sea turtle?" And Lynn faltered slightly upon hearing this. That's right, where's the sea turtle? Not only had the sea turtle disappeared, but even the golden spatial barrier had also disappeared. Lu Chu looked around before pursing her lips. "I thought there would be a tough battle, but the sea turtle ran away so quickly." And Lin didn't say anything, but his heart ached for the seahorse. Several dozen kilometers away, a sea turtle was holding a golden rock in its mouth as it quickly swam into the distance. Two puppets, a powerful fairy, and a super powerful archer. If we were to fight, our chances of winning are less than 50%. If we lose, both the seahorse and I will die. If we run away at the same time, the seahorse has a 30% chance of dying, and I have a 20% chance of dying. However, if I run away on my own, my chances of survival are 100%. This is a choice that can be made without any hesitation. Learn more divination techniques to seek fortune and avoid calamity. Only then can you live a long life. Don't worry, Brother Seahorse. I'll definitely find an opportunity to avenge you in the future. The sea turtle's voice reverberated through the air as its massive body slowly disappeared into the clouds and mist.